Let's get it. 580 Sports Talk coming to you on a Tuesday. We are just 3 hours and 14 minutes away from the start of the biggest Kansas City Royals series in 7 years. The Royals and the Guardians opening up a 3-game set at Progressive Field in Cleveland tonight. First pitch, 5:40 Central. Pre-game gets underway at 5 o'clock. So we are with you for the next 3 hours today here on 580 Sports Talk. We are coming to you live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. All of us here in the Kansas Drive to Zero studio invite you to join fans with a plan. If you're going to be drinking, always have a designated driver. Use your rideshare app or plan ahead for a sober ride home. With Trenton Kraxner across the glass, our producer, engineer, and Spencer Dupuis across from me, I am Dan Lucero, and yes, you are hearing my voice, so that is the latest on Baby Watch. No baby yet. I'm still here. So that is the update for today. For those who are frequent listeners to the program, my wife's due date with our first baby is today, and no movement on that front yet. So a lot of kicking and thrashing about in mama's belly, but no imminent labor as of now. So that is why I am behind the mic, and I'll stay behind the mic with you again until all that fun stuff starts to happen. So glad to have you aboard, whether you're listening on 580 WIBW AM, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, or checking us out on our video stream on our YouTube page, 580 Sports Talk, on Facebook, WIBW News, or on Twitter, 580 Sports Talk. We appreciate you being along for the ride on this Tuesday 3-hour edition of 580 Sports Talk. Lots to get to today, including the Royals and the Guardians. Why I say this is the biggest Royals series in 7 years. We'll go back and revisit the last time the Royals played a series with this much at stake. It was also in Cleveland. It went really poorly. So we won't spend too much time reliving it because there's not much majesty to relive. But this is a big-time series. Royals 4 games out of first place, 11 over 500. Safely in the wild card places. There are more wild card places now than there were back in 2017 when the Royals last played a series of this much importance. And we'll break it down. We'll look at the pitching matchups. We'll talk about what dangers Cleveland faces. We'll each give a key to the series at large, what the Royals are going to need to do to find their way to a road series victory over the first place Guardians. We'll do some other Royals talk as well. Some interesting stats from Mike Petrello of MLB.com. He's sort of their StatCast head honcho, writes a lot of statistically oriented analysis articles, has one on MLB.com today about the Royals and how real is this Royals breakout? What are the things contributing to this Royals breakout? We've talked about a lot of them, but some of the numbers, and these are like basic numbers, these aren't nerdy numbers by any stretch, but just the way that they are laid bare really shows, one, why these Royals are so much better than last year's 106-loss bunch, and two, why it gives optimism about the direction the organization is headed, and not just in the short term with their 36-25 record either. I mean over the long haul with how they're going to develop and teach and coach their players both in the farm system and as they get to the major league level. We will also have a little fun with the idea of adding a relief pitcher. Jeff Passan has an article at ESPN.com today categorizing every team in baseball as far as what their approach is likely to be with the trade deadline 2 months away. And the Royals naturally are going to look to add some pieces. And Passan writes what a lot of people have already openly speculated, that the Royals will look to add to a bullpen that has been the weak spot on this roster. But which relievers might make sense as a target? And as a thought exercise, we're going to take a look at 4 relief pitchers that Passan mentions in his article that might be available from selling teams. 4 relievers with very different backgrounds, different arsenals, but all have been successful this season to a degree. What should the Royals be prioritizing if they look to add a reliever? Team control, veteran experience, ninth inning experience, velocity, strikeouts. What should the Royals prioritize? We'll play a little blind resume trade target game later on in the show today as well.
I don't know how I'm going to do with these. I've already looked at them, and
the game is not to guess.
Yeah.
It's fun if you can guess, but the game is to sort of give you something to think about as far as what kind
how
of
they
pitcher,
want to go about getting a pitcher.
Exactly. What the thought process ought to be behind adding to this bullpen and bolstering this Royals bullpen. We'll talk some Chiefs as well. We were talking yesterday about contracts. A lot of big ones have been handed out this every offseason, but a big one got handed out yesterday, in particular to Justin Jefferson. And we had a conversation with Matt Verderam, our NFL insider, who joins us on Mondays on the show, talking about how much longer the wide receiver market is going to look like this, and then who the next high dollar position players are going to be. And that got me to thinking about what the Chiefs are going to prioritize long term as far as what kind of player or what position or position group they're going to build their core around. The Chiefs have a core group of players right now. It's easily identifiable. Generally speaking, your core are the players you're spending the most money on. The players you're most invested in are your core. Patrick Mahomes, Chris Jones, Travis Kelce, obviously. That's the core group right now of Kansas City Chiefs, and there are some others. What does the core look like moving forward? In 3 years, what does the core look like? How will the changing dynamics of how contracts are awarded and which positions get paid the most money affect how the Chiefs might prioritize either players currently on their roster who will be in line for contract extensions, or how they will play or work the free agent market? So who will be that next Chiefs core after guys like Chris Jones and Travis Kelce maybe age out and hang up the cleats? We'll discuss that in the 3 o'clock hour as well. We'll talk some KU athletics with Michael Swain of Fog.net, 24/7 Sports Network. Jayhawk Weekly comes your way at the bottom of the 4 o'clock hours. It does every Tuesday. And because the 4 o'clock hour is our last hour of the day, we're going to be stuffed pretty full in that 4 o'clock hour with our 580. Yes, jam-packed with our 580 Sports headlines. We'll do What Is Wrong With You, including a very important update to a previous story that, I'm going to be honest, we may have to retroactively rename a monthly winner. We may. I'm not saying we're going to.
We'll have to wait till we all reconvene.
I think that's probably fair. But I think it's a legitimate discussion to be had about maybe stripping one of our What Is Wrong With You champions, because maybe there was really nothing wrong with that person, and maybe something was wrong with the justice system instead. But we will get there.
Maybe we can just spin it and say the What Is Wrong With You was the justice system.
We could very well do that. It will be a discussion, but we'll also do 2 new stories today and pit them against our current weekly champion. We'll do Random Question Tuesday in the 3 o'clock hour. And of course, we eagerly invite your interaction with the program today. You can comment on the show in the YouTube live chat. If you're watching us on YouTube today, 580 Sports Talk is the channel. If you've never watched us on YouTube before, today's a great day to start and a great day to subscribe. We're up to 540 YouTube subscribers. I bet we can get that number to 550 by the end of the week. If you've never watched us before or you're not subscribed, click that subscribe button on our YouTube page. Just search 580 Sports Talk and subscribe and interact with our lovely set of YouTube live chatters throughout the show. We do read the good comments.
You got the
best comments.
Some name suggestions for your kid from Kaufman Ghetto.
Oh, we do?
Yeah.
You name your kid John or Sherman. Neither of those made the final list. I can tell you that. We have one that we're pretty sure we're going to go with. But, if we meet him for the first time and the name doesn't fit, then we're gonna, we have to be nimble. So we're always
got to do that.
Yeah, we're not wedded to one name, but there is one name I think we like more than the other. It's not John. It's not Sherman. I can promise you that. Unfortunately, it is not any of the members of the 2023 NBA champion Denver Nuggets either. I ran all those names by my wife. She turned them all down. No Nicola Lucero. That will not be happening. But yes, comment in the YouTube chat, and like our friend Kaufman Ghetto did there, you can comment if you're watching on Twitter, 580 Sports Talk on Twitter. You can also comment on our Facebook page. You can watch us on Facebook, WIBW News, and comment there. Of course, the Top City Metal Supply text line is open for business, too. You can text us on the Top City Metal Supply text line. That number, 785-272-9429. Let's get into it. The biggest Royals series in 7 years. This is the biggest Royals series. And I went back because the last time the Royals had really at any point of the season past Memorial Day legitimate postseason aspirations was 2017. 2018, the roof caved in. And we're just now starting to see the roof reassembled for the Royals as a Major League Baseball team. But 2017, the Royals finished 80 and 82, and they ended up finishing pretty far out of the money. And that was, of course, the last year of that core group of guys that had helped the Royals win their championship in 2015. That was the last year for Lorenzo Cain. It was the last year for Eric Hosmer. It was supposed to be the last year for Mike Moustakas. Then he signed a one-year deal because nobody wanted to give him a long-term deal. And then the Royals traded him to Milwaukee midway through the next season. It was supposed to be the last year for Alcides Escobar. They brought him back on a one-year deal. You know, it was. I was there. I was there that last game of the regular season, game 162 that year, where all those players were pulled from the game at the same time. It was a very, very emotional day at the K. Also, the Royals lost by like 11 runs to the D-backs, and the game took like 5 hours. It was miserable. Jeez. It was a miserable afternoon, but it was very emotional when Cain and Escobar and Moustakas and Hosmer all got pulled from the game to standing ovations. But there was a time where there was real optimism about the Royals making another run in 2017. They'd been 500-ish in 2016. Of course, the injuries that year to Gordon and Moustakas were really harmful. 2017 felt like they could regroup, and they were kind of in the mix through August. In late August, the Royals dropped 2 out of 3 games to Cleveland at home. You'll recall Cleveland won the division in 2017. They were white hot the second half of that year. Unbelievably hot. But the Royals did bounce back after losing 2 of 3 to Cleveland at home. They won 2 out of 3 over Colorado. Maybe you recall Eric Hosmer hitting a walk-off home run off his buddy Greg Holland in the second game of that series. I do. I remember that. Not fondly, but I do remember that. So it was a 500 homestand, and the Royals set out on the road on August 25th with a 64-62 overall record. They were 4 games out of a playoff spot, 4 games behind the Yankees, who led the wild card race. They were 6 games back of Cleveland. That's not a great spot to be in late August, but if you're going to go play that team, you got a chance to reel them in. There's still faint playoff hope at that point. The Royals did not score a run in that entire series against the Cleveland, at the time, Indians. Did not score a run. Ryan Merritt and company shut them out against Jason Vargas 4-0 in the opener. Mike Clevenger with shutout ball beating Jason Hamill 4-0 in the second game. Then on a Sunday afternoon, Eric Skoglund, remember him, got his brains beaten in. It was 12-0 after 2 innings. That would be the final score. The Royals then immediately came home and lost the first game of their next homestand 12-0 to Tampa Bay. They were 10 games out of first place at that point, and that was all she wrote. But that is the last time that the Royals played in a regular season series that was this important. As important to the standings, to playoff hopes, as this series is here on June 4th, a 3-game series coming up against the Cleveland Guardians. Tonight, I think we'll have the best pitching matchup of the series. Of course, Seth Lugo, the most valuable pitcher by wins above replacement in baseball, taking the bump tonight for Kansas City.
Second best ERA in the majors behind Ranger Suarez.
And he will face off against Tristan McKenzie, the veteran right-hander. Seems weird to call him a veteran right-hander because he's only 26, but he's been around longer than you think. Tristan McKenzie goes tonight for Cleveland. 11 starts for McKenzie, 2-3 record, 3.77 earned run average. Actually had been throwing the ball real well, and then got lit up in Denver in his most recent start. A game that the Guardians won anyway, because, of course, they've been doing a lot of winning, 39-20, 4-game lead in the division. McKenzie, 54 strikeouts and 57 in the third innings, but also has walked 34 and given up 11 home runs. So dinger prone, walk prone, and I still think that he's about as good as Cleveland has in their rotation, aside from Tanner Bybee, who the Royals might see later on in this series. So that's the pitching matchup tonight. We don't know who we're going to see from Cleveland in the next two games. If they stayed on rotation, it would be Logan Allen tomorrow and Tanner Bybee on Thursday afternoon on getaway day. Allen was even worse than McKenzie in the Colorado series. He didn't survive the second inning of his most recent start and carries a 5.83 earned run average despite a 6-3 overall record. Win-loss record, not all that important, as it turns out. Stathead's been trying to tell you that for years. So Allen's turn is tomorrow, and then Bybee, who I think is their best guy, best healthy guy anyway, 12 starts, 3.74 ERA, 69 strikeouts, and just 18 walks in 65 innings. Could they move Bybee up on regular rest? Because like the Royals, they had a day off yesterday, and then slide in the former Royal, and you got to be a real Royals sicko to remember Ben Lively's career in Kansas City. But Ben Lively has been as good as anybody in his 9 starts, and certainly there's no way the Guardians could have expected to get this from the journeyman 32-year-old right-hander at 2.84 ERA in his 9 starts, 47 strikeouts to 15 walks in 50 2/3 innings. The Guardians could arrange their rotation to get their 2 best, for the moment, starting pitchers, and really their 3 best when you count McKenzie, because the other 2 guys in the rotation, Logan Allen and Carlos Carrasco, each carry ERAs well into the 5s. They could line it up so it's all 3 of their best guys this week against the Royals.
So what you're telling me is the Royals need to do damage offensively early tonight to get into their bullpen?
No. Well, yes and no. Like, getting into the bullpen is usually a really good idea. Getting into the Major League's best bullpen, that is not the best idea. You have to do damage against the starter. Yes, your broader point is correct.
Yes.
But you want to do a lot of damage against
What
the
if you
starter.
do a lot of damage, they pull them out a little late, and then you're good?
Well,
that's the ideal situation.
That's the thing, too, is particularly with McKenzie, he's averaging 5 innings a start, 57 1/3 innings in 11 starts. So he's right around 5 innings a start, which shows you that Stephen Vogt, the first-year manager, not shy about going and getting his starting pitcher and letting the bullpen take over. Because as we talked about yesterday, this bullpen's been outstanding. It's the best bullpen ERA in baseball, and it's deep. That's the other part of this, is the bullpen is deep. There's not really a lot of weak links. The worst guy in the bullpen right now by ERA, this may not surprise Royals fans, but it's Scott Barlow. But he's got a 4.07 ERA. That's the worst ERA in the bullpen. And he's got the second best strikeouts per 9 of anybody in the bullpen. He's got 33 punch-outs in 24 1/3 innings. So they haven't used him in a lot of long relief work. They've mostly used Pedro Avila in the long relief role, 20 1/3 innings in his 11 appearances. So if you get to the middle innings or you get McKenzie or whomever out of the game early, you'd probably see Avila, who's been pretty solid, 3.54 ERA, 22-3 strikeout to walk ratio in 20 1/3. So, like, I maybe misunderstood your comment, Spencer, but I think it is hugely important. If you're going to do damage against Cleveland, if you're going to score runs against this team, you'd better get them early. The Royals have been really good this year. We have talked about their 6th inning prowess offensively this year. They've had a lot of 6th inning magic in their games. Well, typically speaking, when you're hitting in the 6th inning, you are either facing a starting pitcher, seeing batters for the 3rd time, and there's that well-known 3rd time through the order penalty that people talk about. You're just naturally kind of worse the 3rd time you face a batter because he's seen you twice. Or you're facing a middle reliever, and most teams don't have a ton of bullpen depth. So the middle reliever you see is along the lines of, like, for the Royals, who you usually see out there in the 6th inning, Chris Stratton, right? Or Nick Anderson. Like, that's the caliber of reliever you are generally seeing. That is not the case. There are not any Chris Strattons or Nick Andersons in this Cleveland bullpen. All of these dudes have been monsters. So you had better get on the starter early. When Colorado beat them 2 out of 3, that's what they were able to do. They got to McKenzie early and they lost that game, but then they got to Allen early in the rubber game and they made that stand up. So you've got to beat up the starters for Cleveland because that's how good that this bullpen has been. Then you've got to keep an offense who's second in the American League in runs off the scoreboard too.
Yeah.
No easy feat. Of course, everybody knows the bold-faced names. Jose Ramirez, future Hall of Famer, 16 dingers, 57 driven in, an 870 OPS. Josh Naylor's having a good year, 15 home runs, an 800 OPS. Steven Kwan's back off the injured list. You thought Luis Arraez was a pain in the butt trying to get him out, trying to get him to swing and miss, trying to get him to hit it to somebody. Steven Kwan is the closest thing the American League has left to a Luis Arraez. He's hitting 362 in his 154 plate appearances. He has struck out just 13 times. That is remarkable. The lesser lights for this Cleveland lineup, though, like it's not deep. They're kind of like the Royals, where I've been reading a lot of like Guardians blogs or fan comments over the last couple of days, and a lot of people feel about the 7, 8, 9 spot in the Cleveland order about how Royals fans feel about 7, 8, 9 in their order. Like, oh my God, this is a dead zone. So yeah, you want to make sure you keep the good hitters in check for this Cleveland team. And that is a lot easier said than done. David Fry has been their best hitter, a 1.128 OPS on 140 plate appearances. The 28-year-old Fry has come out of nowhere this year to be one of the most productive hitters in the entire American League. And with him and Ramirez and Naylor in the middle of that order, you can't really go at them with a platoon advantage because Ramirez switch hits. Naylor's a lefty, Fry's a righty. They are a tough team to match up against. They don't strike out a ton. They run the bases really, really well. This is an outstanding team. And the Royals do a lot of things pretty similar to the Guardians offensively. They also don't strike out a lot. They are also kind of being carried by 4 guys who have been head and shoulders above the rest. And one guy who stands to need to have a really big series is Vinny Pasquantino. Spencer, you had dug up the numbers. Vinny's been red hot of late.
Well, I hadn't. It was actually Bally Sports KC had posted them. I don't want to take credit for that. But yeah, yesterday they had posted something about how he's on a roll. This is in the last week. 391 average, slugging 739, OPS 1.114, 2 homers and 8 RBIs. Including, I believe, he had a homer on his bobblehead day, correct?
Yes, he did. He homered and doubled. He had 3 hits on his bobblehead day. It's been nice to see him get rolling. He's really run hot and cold in a way that has surprised me a bit this year. I feel like a hitter like Pasquantino, who knows the strike zone as well as he does, who doesn't strike out a lot, you would think he would be a much more consistent contributor, but it's been really up and down for Vinny. Like the highs have been really high. The lows have been lower than I would have anticipated from a hitter with Pasquantino's pedigree. But he is hot now. And with him going well, that bolsters the middle of that lineup and gives Bobby Witt Jr. a little bit of protection. Salvador Perez offering Pasquantino some protection. And the top of the order really starting to roll. Velasquez, as we mentioned, hasn't been super hot. He'll bat 5th tonight. But of the 4 hits he has in his last 25 at-bats, they're all extra base hits, and 3 of them have been home runs. So you still have that power threat from a guy like Nelson Velasquez. No MJ Melendez in the lineup tonight. Frazier and Renfroe are going to be your corner outfielders. Not super encouraging. Both of them have better numbers than Melendez.
Somebody posted under the lineup and said, can they teach Fermin to play outfield, please?
Well, that's the interesting thing too, right? And there's a broader discussion to be had there about like Freddie Fermin now has been doing this. It was a real surprise. It kind of came out of nowhere when Fermin was called up last year and was as productive as he was offensively. But so far this year, he's been basically the same hitter. I mean, we're coming up on 350 big league at bats for Freddie Fermin, and they're above average.
Yeah.
Like at some point, you do maybe need to find a way to get his bat in the lineup more often.
It's really good. You're in an interesting situation when both your catchers are hitting really well.
Yeah, like
you put yourself in a weird spot, but it's always good because you have the fact that Perez can play first,
right?
And you have the DH spot as well,
right? And you can do that, and then you don't have to, like, if something happens to one of your catchers, you just slide, if something happened to Fermin, slide Perez behind the plate.
Yeah,
and you can
for Perez,
you don't have to lose your DH, which is never something you really want to do.
I think for Perez specifically, being able to play first and being, first of all, for most of his career all of his career with the Royals, being in the AL, benefiting from the DH, I think he's prolonging his career.
Oh, he most definitely is. I really think that has a lot to do with why he has continued to be as successful offensively as they're not.
He's what, 33?
Yes, 34.
34.
It's his age 34. So he may have just turned 34, actually, or be about to turn 34. Yeah, he just turned 34. Thank you, Trenton.
So
I do.
He's
think,
hitting really well for a 34-year-old.
Yeah, and it is. It's a contrast to there were few catchers who carried more of a workload in terms of games played, innings played early in his career than Perez did. So I'm sure that has been beneficial. But yeah, it would be nice to see Fermin in the lineup a bit more often. Not in the lineup tonight. It's a pretty typical lineup other than no Melendez, Frazier's in left, I think, and Renfroe's in right. Or is Frazier at second? Do I have that?
Frazier's in left.
Frazier's in left, Renfroe's in right.
Yes, and then Hampson's at center.
Hampson's at center tonight. No Isbell.
Yeah, so both Melendez and Isbell out of the lineup.
I guess I'm not looking at it. Typically you want to load up with left-handers, but I'm not looking at McKenzie's platoon splits. Maybe righties hit him better than lefties. But that's the way things look going into this week. It's a big series. It's a meaningful series. Embrace it, Royals fans. Have some fun with this one today. Going to be a whale of a series between the Royals and the Guardians. We have some keys to the series that we're going to get to. All three of us have one major key. DJ Khaled voice. Major key.
Major key alert.
Terrible DJ Khaled impersonation. My apologies to everyone involved with having to hear that. We got some keys to the series coming up. We'll also point out some numbers that really underscore the improvement made on the mound, not just from outside the organization, but from inside as well, that has buoyed the Royals this season to this point where they're actually playing a meaningful June divisional series starting tonight. Again, 5:40 first pitch, 5 o'clock pregame. So we're off an hour early today on 580 Sports Talk. We'll take a break, come back with more. We're just getting started today here on 580 WIBW. 2:37 on this Tuesday edition of 580 Sports Talk. All of us here in the Kansas Drive to Zero studio invite you to join Fans with a Plan. If you're going to be drinking, always have a designated driver. Use your rideshare app or plan ahead for a sober ride home. Dan Spencer and producer engineer Trent Kraxner with you on this Tuesday edition. How fired up are you, Royals fans, for this series? Is this as charged as you've been for a divisional series, a divisional rival series in quite some time? Let us know on the Top City Mail Supply text line, 785-272-9429, or in the YouTube live chat. All three of us, have a key to this series of games against Cleveland. And we'll start with dyed-in-the-wool Royals fan, born wearing a Mike Sweeney jersey, Trenton Kraxner. I might be exaggerating for some dramatic effect. But Trenton, what do you see as the biggest key to Royals' success in this series?
The Royals need to score early and often. During this rough patch, the Royals' offense hasn't been very productive outside a couple ninth inning comebacks where it's like, well, why couldn't we do this a couple innings before? But with Cleveland having one of the best bullpens, which we talked about in the opening segment, you don't want to be facing Barlow or Clase in the 8th and 9th because Scott Barlow's a little bit past his prime, but he's still pretty good.
He's been pitching really well for Cleveland.
Yeah.
He was a pretty late signing, too. I think he kind of sat there on the market for a really long time after he didn't really pitch to any great distinction after the trade to San Diego last year. But, he's pitched really well.
Yeah, and you don't want to be facing those guys. I saw some Emmanuel Clase didn't even give up a run in the month of May. Didn't give up a run. I don't know how many appearances that is, but he didn't give up a run. You don't want to be facing him in the 9th inning. So you want to get an early lead. Get the good rotation. You're going to get Lugo and at least Singer for at least one of the 2 of the 3 games. And you got to put the pressure on the Guardians to come back. I think you got to put the pressure. Can you guys get to Seth Lugo or Brady Singer? So the offense needs to be really good this series because, like you said, the Guardians are also second in the league in runs. They're a really good offense. So you got to score early and often is a big key.
Attack those starting pitchers. Thank you, Trenton. Spencer, what's your key to this series for the Royals?
My key to this series for the Royals, it's pretty simple. They kind of late, it hasn't worked out for them every game, but they have a never say die mentality, and they need to get that. They were not supposed to be this good on June 5th. Entering their first series with the division leader, the Guardians, they weren't supposed to be here. If they somehow come out with a sweep, there'll only be one game back of them. They're proven they're up there, even if they're only able to win one game this series. As Bobby Witt Jr. says, the boys just need to play some ball this series. The offense needs to come alive, and hope Singer and Thursday's starter can give you good outings because you most likely know you're going to get a great one tonight from Lugo.
It's a young team that the Guardians have, but a lot of these guys were with the organization when they won the division 2 years ago. There's an expectation in Cleveland that you win. And even though they didn't win the division last year, they were in the hunt until late in the season when they kind of petered out. There is that expectation, that culture, for lack of a better way to put it. And maybe that is the right way to put it. But there's a culture of winning that exists in Cleveland, even with a brand new manager. Even with a guy, Stephen Vogt, their first-year manager, taking over for the great Terry Francona, who ought to be in the Hall of Fame. There's still that expectation of winning, that winning attitude, that the way Cleveland kind of carries themselves. And Jose Ramirez is so much at the center of that for that team, that they have the expectation to go out and contend and to win these series and to win at home. We'll see where the Royals are kind of at mentally, because they go into this series not playing as well as Cleveland has played in their last few. Cleveland just won a series against Washington at home. They had a 4-2 Western road trip the week before that, where they took they dropped 2 or 3 to Colorado, but they swept, I think it was San Francisco. So the Royals, obviously, losers to 6 of their last 8. They're not riding that same kind of high, but they are riding the high of a walk-off win on Sunday. How do they carry themselves in this series? How do they come out and play? Are they in that kind of attack mode? Are they playing with that level of confidence with the stakes being as high for a regular season series as maybe they have been at all in the careers of a lot of these guys, like Vinny Pasquantino and Bobby Witt Jr. and a lot of these guys haven't. Brady Singer, when he takes the ball tomorrow, haven't played in games like this, haven't experienced anything like this at the major league level. So, I certainly think there's an intangible aspect to this, Spencer, that is very important. My key to the series is starting pitchers carrying the load and setting the tone. It starts with Lugo tonight. It's Singer tomorrow against TBA. It's TBA versus TBA on Thursday. Seth Lugo starting the series. You're still in a little bit of a funk as a team. He has been a stopper for you, Lugo has. He's got to go out and be one tonight. Get deep into a game. Give you 6+ so that you don't have to lean so heavily on the bullpen. Now, the bullpen is rested for whatever benefit that gives the Royals. With the day off, everybody should have a relatively fresh arm. It'll be all hands on deck for Matt Quatrero. If he wants to go to James MacArthur in the 8th, he can. If he wants to go to whomever he trusts the most after MacArthur in the 7th or even in the 6th, he can do that. But I want to see Lugo set the tone. Singer certainly has shown that he's capable of working deep into games, but you never know with him when it comes to efficiency. He might be effective, but you never know what it's going to look like in terms of efficiency. Is he going to give you 5 innings or is he going to give you, 6 or 7? I need the version of Singer that gives you 6+. There's a chance to be efficient in the series because Cleveland's not a team that's going to strike out much. So play into that if you're Lugo and Singer. Bury those fastballs in on the hands. For Lugo, use that varied pitch mix. Get that weak contact that you've been getting all season long. The starting pitching is the backbone of this team, and if they're going to go get a series win, they're 2 most veteran starters this week, because it's either going to be Marsh or Lynch on Thursday. We can pretty much feel secure in saying that. It's going to be one of those 2 guys. Neither of those 2 are as experienced as the 2 guys who are going to take the mound in the first 2 games of this series. Those guys have to be sharp. Those guys have to set the tone for the Royals in this series. We're going to take another break here on 580 Sports Talk. When we come back, speaking of Royals pitching, some fascinating numbers that I think not just reveal why the Royals have been successful, but why they're on track to be successful over the long haul as an organization. That's coming up here on 580 Sports Talk. Alpha Media is proud to partner with the Kansas Drive to Zero Coalition and encourages you to join Kansas fans with a plan. Always have a designated driver or other sober ride to and from your destination. For more information, kansasdrivetozero.com. From the YouTube live chat, Paul chimes in, true statement series for the Royals. How good are you and how good do you want to be? Kansas City is a flawed team, but Cleveland are not world beaters. Show up and punch the proverbial bully in the mouth. That has to be the attitude. Like there's a lot of this. I tend to try and stick with the tangible when I'm trying to analyze something, but intangibles do matter to a certain extent. They're just really hard to quantify. And they're the kinds of things I feel like I sound dumber trying to talk about intangible stuff than I do talking about tangible stuff. That's just personally. But I do think that there is an intangible factor here, like a confident Cleveland club who's been here, who expects to be in this position in the driver's seat, even if they weren't the preseason choice to win the division, against a Kansas City team who was nobody's preseason choice to be anywhere near where they are now. But here they are, fourth best start in franchise history, 4 games out of first place. You go win a series, gain a game in the standings, and you feel like, okay, we've taken your measure in our first meeting, and we get you for 4 at home at the end of the month. Come see us then. Like it's a tone-setting series, maybe even for the rest of the season. Maybe that's not too big to say at this stage of things for the Royals. Good article today at MLB.com about the Royals. Mike Petrello is a guy whose work I like a lot. I follow him on Twitter. Very analytically oriented writer for MLB.com. A lot of his stuff is based on some of the more advanced stats or the StatCast data, the stuff you find at BaseballSavant.com. So I like reading his stuff. I feel like I learn a lot when I read Mike Petrello article. And his article up today is not sure if these Royals are legit. This might convince you. And so there's a lot of interesting stuff here stat-wise. And a lot of it is, stuff that you already know if you're watching the games. Like, hey, Bobby Witt Jr., he's having a heck of a year, isn't he? Salvador Perez, he's having a nice year. Some interesting takeaways, though, from Mike's article is that, number one, the Royals have gotten better defense out of Salvador Perez than we have seen in a very long time. I don't have the time or the energy to yell about how valuable I think pitch framing is as a stat. I think it requires a compliant umpire and B, competent pitchers who can hit a spot. And I don't think it's a mistake that Salvador Perez hasn't been a great framer over the course of his career because by and large, he's been catching bums. And this year he's not catching bums. And he has been worth 0 framing runs, which that doesn't sound like a big deal. Oh, he's bang average. Well, he's been minus 89 runs since 2015 as a framer, according to the numbers. And that's the worst of any catcher in baseball. So he's gone from being the worst at it to average at it. And that's not nothing. Like that's
huge.
Meaningful.
Yeah.
And Petrello points out,
especially as he gets older.
Yes. And Petrello points out that 2 years ago, Royals catchers positioned themselves 70 inches behind home plate. That was the second furthest back of any team's catchers. And they measure anything these days, don't they? This year, Royals catchers are 58 inches behind home plate. They've moved a whole foot closer to home. They're now the second closest catchers to home plate. And when you receive the ball closer to the plate, gives you a better chance to get a borderline call, frame a pitch, catch it where the umpire sees it, where it crosses home plate, and get that call. So I do think there is something to that. The idea that Royals pitching has improved, but also their catching has improved as well, which helps, obviously, your pitchers. But back to the pitchers for a second. These were the stats that jumped out to me. And this is not anything real nerdy. We're talking ERA here, right? Yeah. But the new Royals pitchers this year, pitchers who have had at least 10 innings pitched this season for the Royals who did not pitch for the team last year. That's Seth Lugo, that's Michael Wacha, Will Smith, Chris Stratton. It's that group of pitchers. 10 innings for the Royals this year who pitched somewhere else last year. Last year, that group of pitchers, all the pitchers the Royals have brought in this year had a 3.62 ERA for their other teams. This year, those pitchers in 245 innings have a 3.64 ERA. So even though on an individual level, we look at Chris Stratton and Will Smith and Nick Anderson and go, oh my gosh, that's not real good. By and large, the Royals have gotten what they have paid for.
Yeah.
Gotten what they expected from the group of new pitchers.
We're just about halfway through of what that average is.
What about the returning pitchers? There are 6 pitchers on this year's roster who threw at least 10 innings for the Royals last year and have thrown at least 10 innings for the Royals this year. That's Brady Singer. That's Cole Reagans. That's Angel Zerpa and Daniel Lynch and James MacArthur and Alec Marsh. Those guys. Last year, those pitchers in 424 innings had a 4.84 earned run average. This year, those same guys in 249 innings, a 3.21 ERA. That is a run and a half better.
That's where the turnaround is.
Than they were last year.
I mean, you're not giving up as many runs as you were a year ago, and your offense is hitting better.
And that's internal improvement. That's not just bringing guys in and they upgrade. That's and we're talking not just about established big leaguers here. We're talking about guys who are rarely early in their careers, like your relievers, MacArthur, Zerpa, Marsh, but also guys who are veterans like Lynch and Singer. That's meaningful improvement. That's not just a scotch of improvement. That's meaningful improvement from those guys. And the other thing that stands out, what about the pitchers that aren't around anymore? There were 23 pitchers who threw at least 5 innings for last year's Royals. Those 23 pitchers who were on the team last year but aren't this year, that's your Zach Greinke's, Josh Stamon, Aroldis Chapman, Scott Barlows, Colin Snyder, Dylan Coleman, like that group of pitchers. Last year, those pitchers in over 1,100 innings, that group of pitchers had a 5.20 ERA. So that's what you're replacing. You've cut the chaff, right? And now you're getting improved production, not just from the guys you brought in from outside the organization, but from guys who have been in the organization.
And look, those guys they brought in, they didn't bring in the best pitchers that were on the market.
No, they didn't break the bank.
No.
Yeah.
And look what they're doing.
Yeah. They didn't have to go break the bank. They didn't go pay $100 million for Blake Snell, who, by the way, is head back to the injured list again. So this says 2 things. Number one, the Royals are capable with this coaching staff that has been in place now for a season and change of making meaningful adjustments to veteran pitchers in their organization, which I think bodes really well for the guys who are coming up through the minor leagues right now with the Royals. And number 2, the Royals have the ability to look at their roster and be honest about who doesn't need to be around. They cut the chaff almost entirely, and they're getting much improved pitching from their returning players and certainly from outside the organization as well. It's going to do it for this hour of the show. What does the future Chiefs core look like? We'll discuss it in the 3 o'clock hour, live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio, right here on 580 Sports Talk on 580 WIBW. 2 of a shortened edition of 580 Sports Talk on this Tuesday. Dan, Spencer, Trent, and the group with you on this edition of 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski remains on vacation. He'll be back next week. We are live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. All of us here in the Kansas Drive to Zero studio invite you to join fans with a plan. If you're going to be drinking, always have a designated driver, use your rideshare app, or plan ahead for a sober ride home. Great to have you along with us, whether you're listening on 580 WIBW AM, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, or if you are watching on our video stream, there are 3 ways to watch the program. 3 ways to do it. You can do it on YouTube. Subscribe to the YouTube, 580 Sports Talk. Watch us on YouTube. Watch us on Facebook, WIBW News. Watch us on Twitter, 580 Sports Talk. You can comment. You can interact. We love hearing from you if you are watching the video stream. You can also hit us up on the Top City Metal Supply text line, 785-272-9429. Vance asked me earlier, I didn't get to this. Vance asked if I'm getting a little jittery. This is the due date for baby number 1 for myself and Abby, my wife. And she is due today, but nothing to tell you right away. No impending update to give you. Am I jittery? Absolutely. I mentioned yesterday on the show, it's really hard to think about anything else that isn't, I'm 24 hours from the due date of my first child. Now it's really hard to think about anything other than today's supposed to be the day.
Oh, yeah. And, like you looking down at your phone every 5 seconds. Did she text me? Did she text me?
Yes.
Did she text
me? Every time I get
yeah.
any text, Brendan just texted the 2 of us with a note for something for later in the show. And I instinctively look down. Like usually I don't much check my phone. Like I'm pretty easy to tune that out while we're going. But yeah, today, every time my phone lights up, it's like, is that the phone call? Is it the phone call? So yeah, Vance, thank you for asking. Jittery, absolutely. Excited, absolutely. I'll leave if the phone rings. I'll be out of here. But until that happens, you guys are stuck with me here on 580 Sports Talk. We're going to talk a little Chiefs this hour. We're also going to play a fun little game. I think it's a fun game. Blind resume relievers that the Royals might realistically target in the trade market. What do you think the Royals should prioritize when it comes to adding to and bolstering their bullpen? We'll also do some Random Question Tuesday this hour as well. But we begin with breaking news. First reported, I believe, by Joe Tipton of On3, who is like the guy when it comes to college basketball recruiting.
We need like a little jingle for when we have breaking sports.
This
news.
Just in. Did I sell it better today?
Yeah, it was a lot better today. I think you tried a little too hard to fit it in yesterday. I think it just kind of naturally flowed after I said we need a breaking news sounder.
It felt more natural. Thank you. This just in. K-State men's basketball has received a commitment from former Kentucky center Ugonna Onyenso, who was rated by On3 as the top available center in the portal. It was widely reported that Onyenso was on campus on Monday, and a source has told Joe Tipton of On3 that the commitment has been made. There's also a picture of Onyenso in a K-State jersey and a smiling Jerome Tang. That's confirmation. That's enough confirmation for me.
Yeah,
that's happening, and that Ugonna Onyenso is a Wildcat. Onyenso played 18.6 minutes per game this past season at Kentucky in his sophomore season. Not a scoring big, at least wasn't asked to be a scoring big. Of course, if you watch Kentucky, they played a little bit of thoroughbred basketball with their guards, and the 2 guys are going to be top 5 picks. Dillingham and Shepard did most of the scoring, and the guard, Reeves, the wing. So they weren't exactly throwing the ball into the post and asking Onyenso to go to work. So it's not terribly surprising they only averaged 3.5 points a game. I'm not fussed about that. Close to 5 rebounds per game. Here's the big number. In only 18.5 minutes per game, he averaged almost 3 blocks.
Their dinger right there. Need a big guy.
They absolutely needed. We have been talking about it. They got 2 spots left. Now they got 1. And we talked about it yesterday. They need a 5. They've got some small ball 5s. They've got some fringe 4-5s, like David Gasson can play a little 5, but this is a center, period, full stop.
Third in the nation last year in blocks.
Third in the nation in blocks per game or total blocks?
Total blocks.
Total blocks. Oh, barely playing a half, not even playing a full half per game. He was third in the country in blocks. So this is going to be the presence that K-State needs defensively in the post. Last year, it was kind of Jarrell Colbert, and I still think long-term Colbert's got a bright future, but obviously he hit the portal, ended up transferring to SMU. So now it's Yenso in the middle for K-State, and now the lineup starts to make so much more sense because you can have David Gasson coming off the bench as sort of your swing big. Does he need to play more minutes at the 4 for Achor? Does he need to play more minutes at the 5 before Yenso gets in foul trouble? You can play matchups. You don't have to lean so heavily on the other true 5 on your roster by a fall, who's got 3 years of eligibility left, and Yenso has 2. It's starting to make much more sense. They're a wing away, I think, from being really good. If they can convince Kaluma to come back, or they can get Jameer Watkins from Florida State. There was reported interest from K-State in Watkins, who at least one website has rated as the best player left in the transfer portal. One more scoring wing, and then Jerome Tang's got to put it all together, right? Like, this is going to be 7 new players from the portal, plus David Castillo is the true freshman. So maybe as many as 8 guys out of the portal if Kaluma doesn't come back and they use that scholarship on a different portal target. And you look at that and say, well, how can you make that come together? You know who did make something exactly like that come together 2 years ago and got it to the Elite Damn 8? Jerome Tang.
Yeah.
So this is the guy to trust to make that work, to bring it all together. And I'm fired up for this edition for Kansas State. Early on in the process, the roster didn't really make a lot of sense. And now it makes a lot of sense. Now you can see how all the pieces fit together, how they can play matchups, how they can have lineups where they want to run. They can have lineups where they got to go big and defend. They're not as reliant on guys who haven't played as much college basketball like a Baye Fall. They were going to be leaning on him heavy in the middle if they hadn't gotten a get like a Yenso. So this is a big deal. This is a really good get, I think, for K-State.
Yeah, and it helps us with some content, too, because this happens in the beginning of the week, not the end of the week. And we'll talk with
Tim Fitzgerald
tomorrow of GoPowerCat.com.
That's right.
Get his reaction.
We will get his thoughts.
And maybe another domino might fall between now and then.
It very well could. Again, like, this is not uncommon. It was a week from today last year. It was the 11th of June, I think it was the 11th of June when Arthur Kaluma committed to K-State last year. So this is still an ongoing roster building process, but K-State has added a 7th player from the transfer portal, and it will be, I believe, the player who will be their starting center next year, Ugonna Onyenso. 2 years of eligibility for the 7-footer.
Kind of crazy how the transfer portal timing, how a month ago when we talked to Fitz, it was like, not looking good.
It wasn't. Yeah. They had that weekend where
vibes were low.
Yeah. They had 2 big targets that they didn't end up getting. Clifford Omori, the big guy, who ended up going to Alabama. And then the other one, the guard from Arkansas. Battle? Was Khalif Battle? Yeah, Khalif Battle, who ended up going to Gonzaga, and that all happened on the same weekend.
Yeah,
that did. It did not feel good. The vibes were not spectacular at that moment. We got a text in from the Top State Metal Supply text line from 785. This is exciting. We need a big guy. We being Kansas State, and now we have one. When you consider how Kleiman, Mitty, and Tang have done this offseason, 2024-25 could be an epic year for Wildcat Athletics. Oh, and go Backcats. So there's a vote in favor of the big fella, the former Kentucky Wildcat, Ugonna Onyenso. I remember watching him play last year. I watched a few Kentucky games. Kentucky was actually really fun to watch once John Calipari decided, hey, maybe I should just let my 2 guards cook.
Yeah.
Maybe I should just let Rob Dillingham do what Rob Dillingham does and Reed Shepherd do what Reed Shepherd does. Maybe I should just let that happen. And they were really fun to watch right up until they ran into, Jack Golke and the Oakland Golden Grizzlies in the first round of the tournament. But so I watched a handful of Kentucky games last year. Onyenso's just huge. Like, that was the thing about him that really stood out last year. He's just so big. And he is raw. Like, he's a raw talent, particularly offensively. But K-State's not going to throw it to him in the post and ask him to score 15 a game. He's going to be a rim runner on offense, and he's going to be a rim protector on defense.
Yeah.
And that fits into the system. That's exactly what K-State needs.
It's kind of funny to look at the picture. That's the on-3 picture and the picture that's being run around.
Yeah,
the height difference between Coach Tang and Onyenso.
Yeah, the Jeff Goodman has weighed in. College basketball writer Jeff Goodman, Field of 68, showed flashes last season, referring to Onyenso. Key will be whether he can develop consistency under Jerome Tang. Tang looks so happy in that picture, man.
He does.
Oh, he looks overjoyed. He looks like a man who understands that his roster is starting to come together. He really does. That's a great picture. Anyhow, we promised you some Chiefs talk, and we'll get there now. Talking to Matt Verderame yesterday, I thought it was a really interesting conversation. If you missed our chat with our NFL insider, Matt Verderame, in the 3 o'clock hour of yesterday's show, you can always view the archived video of the show on our YouTube page, 580 Sports Talk, or you can listen to the podcast. You go to 580wibw.com, hover over that podcast tab, click 580 Sports Talk for hour-by-hour breakdown. So you never have to miss anything. You never have to miss a single second of 580 Sports Talk. So go back and listen to that conversation if you didn't have a chance to hear it yesterday. It was a good chat, as it always is with Matt. But we were talking generally about the big contract that Justin Jefferson got from Minnesota and how that impacts wide receiver dollars moving forward. If $35 million a year is going to be the ceiling, or if wide receivers are going to start getting more, or, and this is Matt's theory, and I agree with him, wide receivers are going to start getting paid like running backs, where the elite of the elite are going to get the big money, but teams elsewhere are going to look and say, hey, we'll just draft a really talented wide receiver and we'll get the 4 or 5 years out of that wide receiver, and then we'll move on and we'll go find another one in the draft, because there are so many talented ones coming out of college and into the league each and every year. Like, look at the wide receiver class this year. Everybody who took a wide receiver in the first round this year probably expects to get a wide receiver 1 or at least a wide receiver 2 out of who they drafted. So that could be wide receivers becoming valued like running backs. What happens moving forward? And, well, then where does that money go that teams are using against their salary cap on wide receivers right now? Matt speculated maybe it's defensive back. Maybe Trent McDuffie gets $20-25 million a year by the time he's a free agent. And that got me thinking about, okay, well, if Trent McDuffie gets that kind of money, who else are the Chiefs going to pay? And so I went and looked at the current Chiefs contracts. And these are the 6 highest paid Chiefs right now. These are the 6 Chiefs whose cash total for 2024 is 8 figures. So 10 million or more. Obviously, there's Patrick Mahomes, $45.75 million. You have Chris Jones, $31.35. Juwan Taylor, $20 million. Travis Kelce, $17 million. Joe Tooney, I was looking at the offensive lineman below Kelce, and my brain locked. Joe Tooney, $16 million a year. Justin Reed, $10.75 million a year. Those are your 6 highest paid Chiefs in terms of cash total. Justin Reed's a free agent after this season. Tooney and Kelce could hit free agency after the 2025 season. They got 2 years left on their contract. Juwan Taylor's got 3 years left on his 4-year deal. He could hit free agency in 27. Chris Jones, 5-year deal, could hit free agency in 29. And I'm not including like the dead cap years where you could actually save money against the cap if you cut a player. Like, the Chris Jones deal is functionally 3 years. Like, the Chiefs could move off of Chris Jones in 2027 with minimal damage done to their salary cap if they wanted to do that. If 33-year-old Chris Jones is no longer producing at the level they need him to produce at. Patrick Mahomes is never, ever, 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 ever getting to free agency. Set him aside.
Nope. And Travis Kelce will play with the Chiefs as long as he wants to play with the Chiefs. He'll get probably 1-year deals.
Right. Like, the Chiefs are committed to keeping Kelce in red and Jones in red and obviously Mahomes in red. Like, that's your homegrown core, as it were. The other 3 guys, it's interesting, are priority free agents. Like, the Chiefs had a hole and they went out and they signed a player and they've kept that player. Tooney, they had a hole in the interior O-line. Taylor, they had a hole at tackle. Reed, they had a hole at safety after they let Tyrann Mathieu walk. So I got to thinking, in 3 years' time, Mahomes is obviously going to be the highest paid Chief until he's done playing. But in 3 years, Travis Kelce will be 38 years old. Joe Tooney will be 35. Younger than I thought. I thought he was already in his mid-30s. It's weird. Joe Tooney's younger than I thought. I keep thinking he's older than he is. And Chris Jones will be 33. So by the time the 2027 offseason rolls around, Juwan Taylor's deal will be up. Travis Kelce, I don't think is going to play more than 3 years. I would be surprised if he plays beyond the length of his current contract. I think at 37, he might be ready to hang it up, go do all of the other things that are going to be available to him in his post-football life. Joe Tooney might be ready to hang it up at age 35. 2027 also happens to be the earliest that Trent McDuffie and George Karlaftis could hit free agency if the Chiefs pick up their fifth-year options, which you would expect they would do for both players. So that then raises questions, because if you assume Trent McDuffie is going to get a long-term deal from the Chiefs, and I think that's a safe assumption, and if you think George Karlaftis is going to earn something like a long-term contract with the Chiefs, I don't think he's going to make top-of-the-scale defensive end / edge rusher money, but I feel like Karlaftis is a guy who, if he continues to be a double-digit sack guy, will be the kind of player the Chiefs want to keep in red for an extended period of time. I don't think they're going to de-Ford him, right? Like, de-Ford had the one good year in his contract here, and the Chiefs were happy to tag and trade him. Karlaftis, double-digit sacks in his second season with an upward trajectory. I think those two guys are going to be part of the core long-term.
Yeah.
Along with Mahomes. And what else? We've talked about Creed Humphrey and Nick Bolton and Trey Smith. They all hit free agency after this season. All three of those guys. Humphrey seems likely to get a top-of-the-scale center contract, which isn't that onerous against the salary cap. Centers aren't making, they're not even making guard money, really. And they're not making tackle money. The Chiefs can do that with with Creed Humphrey. I think they're going to. That begs the questions about Nick Bolton and Trey Smith. Are we overreacting to the absurd Robert Hunt deal when we talk about what Trey Smith can realistically expect to get with a contract extension? Because I looked at the highest paid guards in the league. Landon Dickerson, $21 million a year from the Eagles. He's been to 2 Pro Bowls. Chris Lindstrom, $20.5 million a year from the Falcons. He's been to 2 Pro Bowls. He's been a second-team All-Pro twice. Quentin Nelson of the Colts, $20 million a year. 6-time Pro Bowler, 3-time first-team All-Pro. Trey Smith has never been to a Pro Bowl and has never been an All-Pro, not even a second-team All-Pro. Are we sure Trey Smith is going to get $20 million just because one team was dumb enough to give that money to Robert Hunt, who, by the way, has also not been to a Pro Bowl and not been an All-Pro? Are we sure it's going to be $20 million for Trey Smith? Because I think if you can do something like 18 for Trey Smith, that's probably worth talking about. I guess the question is, how do you view Trey Smith? Do you think that he is an upper echelon? Is he a top 2 or 3 guard in the National Football League? I think he's really good. He's never been an All-Pro. That's hard to get past. If you're going to pay a guy top 2, top 3 at his position money, if you're going to go $20 million a year for a guy, he better be an All-Pro at guard. I think he better be an All-Pro at any position if you're going to make top of the scale money. And Trey Smith still hasn't been that. Now, maybe, look, I think this is not to say, actually, Trey Smith is bad. That's not what I'm saying. Could he be an All-Pro this year? That, I think, is his ceiling. But if he doesn't get there, is he going to be a guy the Chiefs are going to break the bank for? And I think you would ask the same question about Nick Bolton, right? Like, I think Nick Bolton's a good player. You got a cough key? There you go. There's the cough key. You all right? All right, he's okay, folks. He's going to be fine. Spencer's going to be all right.
Was not expecting that to happen. I don't know how that happened.
But anyway, Nick Bolton also. No Pro Bowls, no All-Pros. The highest paid off-ball linebacker in the league. We talked about this yesterday. Do you remember who it was? Not yesterday. We talked about this last week. Do you remember who the top off-ball linebacker is?
No.
Roquan Smith.
Wait, yes. Duh. That makes sense.
Roquan Smith, making $20 million a year. Roquan Smith, 4-time All-Pro, 2-time first-team All-Pro, Pro Bowler. Fred Warner is the second highest paid linebacker, off-ball linebacker in the National Football League. Fred Warner is awesome. I am endeavoring to find how often he's been an All-Pro. 3-time first-team All-Pro, 3-time Pro Bowler. Tremaine Edmonds is the third highest paid running back. Tremaine Edmonds is the third highest paid off-ball linebacker in the league. He's making $18 million a year annually on average. He had a $50 million guarantee when he signed his contract. Tremaine Edmonds isn't the caliber of player Roquan Smith and Fred Warner is, but I'd also say Nick Bolton's better than Tremaine Edmonds. And yet, Tremaine Edmonds, 2 Pro Bowls. That's 2 more than Nick Bolton. So, are the Chiefs going to have to go top of the scale for either of those guys? And if they don't have to go top of the scale for either of those guys, could they keep all of them with Creed Humphrey and maybe decide that Tooney is a cut a year before he hits free agency? Or obviously you can restructure Mahomes and the cap is going to go up and all of those things. But do you view all of those 3? Do you think it's possible, Spencer, they keep all 3 of those guys?
No.
It's going to be hard.
Yeah, I don't.
Who would you prioritize? Put them in order. Your priorities for those 3 guys: Humphrey, Bolton, Smith. Who, in what order would you prioritize getting an extension done with those guys? I'm going to give you
probably Bolt. I don't know, because Humphrey and Creed, Humphrey, Bolt. I don't know. I'm iffy on all 3 of them, honestly. I think you go Smith, Bolton, Humphrey.
Okay. I'm going to tell you how I would prioritize it. I would prioritize it Humphrey, Smith, and Bolton. I'm going to tell you how I think the Chiefs prioritize it.
Okay.
I think the Chiefs prioritize it Humphrey, Bolton, Smith. Nick Bolton is like a Rorschach test. Like, what you see is what you want to see with him. Like, he's not huge, so he's limited a little bit athletically. Like, he's not the greatest cover linebacker you've ever seen. But intangibly, really strong player, great leader in the center of the defense. He's the green dot. He's very much trusted by Steve Spagnuolo. So his value lies as much in the intangible as it does the tangible. But that being said, Drew Tranquill's sticking around for this year and the next 2.
Yeah.
What if he's the green dot moving forward? What if Drew Tranquill is the contingency for Nick Bolton?
I wouldn't be surprised.
And I didn't think about that until I was putting this segment together. Maybe Tranquill's the guy, because he filled in at middle linebacker admirably. He's a better cover linebacker than Nick Bolton. And he's on a much more team-friendly contract. 3 years, $19 million. As much as I like, and I do, I think Nick Bolton's a good player. I thought he had a chance last year before he got hurt. I thought he was playing at a Pro Bowl, maybe even close to an All-Pro level. I thought he was playing really good football before he suffered the injury last year, which was really his first major injury of his career. And it was a freak one, dislocated wrist. You don't expect that to recur or anything. But I have long been of the mind that, oh, gosh, Spagnuolo loves Bolton. They're going to find a way to keep him around. That's going to be a guy that they prioritize, and maybe they prioritize him to the extent where they don't keep Trey Smith. I'm starting to wonder if maybe I have that backwards. I'm starting to wonder if maybe, just maybe, the Chiefs see Drew Tranquill as the long-term, or at least the next 2 years after this one, solution at the middle linebacker spot. And try their best to keep that interior offensive line together. Because, again, bit of a history lesson maybe for you, Spencer, because you weren't around for this. But the Chiefs won a Super Bowl, and then they lost a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Do you remember that Super Bowl they lost?
That was to Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Bucks in Tampa Bay, right?
Yes, that was the COVID season Super Bowl.
COVID year, yes.
Yeah, they lost that Super Bowl because their offensive line was down to like 5 guys who are bouncers in the plaza on the weekend, including 2-time Super Bowl least valuable player Mike Remmers starting a Super Bowl. It went so poorly that the Chiefs very obviously decided that offseason, we are never letting that happen to Patrick Mahomes ever again. They went and traded the first-round pick for Orlando Brown Jr., and they drafted Creed Humphrey, and they drafted Trey Smith. I think they might prioritize that offensive line over the linebacker spot, or maybe even any other spot. And I think that the core long-term is always going to include at least 2 linemen. Like that list of highest paid guys, I think there's always going to be at least 2 offensive linemen in that group. Maybe even 3, depending on if they want to extend Jawan Taylor long-term, keep him in a Chief uniform for the long-term, how long Tooney plays. I think it might be O-line that forms the core, Mahomes and the O-line, and then the elite defensive players. Like, I think Trent McDuffie is an elite corner. He's an all-pro.
Yeah.
He's done something that Nick Bolton is not. He's done something that nobody else on that defense other than Chris Jones has done. He played an all-pro level. So that's my vision, I think, I've landed on for what the Chiefs core looks like moving forward, is that it's Mahomes and that it's O-linemen. We're going to take a break here on 580 Sports Talk. We'll come back, play a little Random Question Tuesday, and we'll have some more Royals talk. We're talking building a bullpen better for the Royals. That's all coming up. Stay with us here on 580 Sports Talk. All of us here in the Kansas Drive to Zero studio invite you to join Fans with a Plan. If you're going to be drinking, always have a designated driver. Use your rideshare app or plan ahead for a sober ride home. Time for a little Random Question Tuesday. Spencer, what's your first random question?
So I've been holding on to this for quite a few, I guess, a week and a half, because last week we ran out of time. So I've been holding on to this for a while, and it's a life experience that I've had recently. So a year ago, well, not a year ago, last September, I was laid off. The guy I lived with, I worked with, I moved. We were both on the lease. I moved out. He had the electricity. I had the Wi-Fi.
Okay.
So I had to transfer all that to him.
Sure.
Well, this company that, owns a bunch of things, but also is a telecommunications company, they own NBC and all those things.
Sure. Yes.
They go by two names.
For
some reason, their system just hated me trying to change everything. So for the last 6 months or 8 months, I had been getting emails from whenever a bill was ready, I was off the bill. I was off the account. A bill was ready, or most recently, my roommate is leaving. He's moving out of the apartment, moving in with his girlfriend, I assume. What random thing from your past living situation had randomly cropped up somewhere?
From my past living situation.
Like if you had a roommate, an account tied to both of you or something like that.
So I don't have a story like that, but I have a story that's kind of similar. Something that I kept getting a call about after I thought that the situation had been settled. I thought this was done and it kept coming back. I do have a story like that.
Okay.
So I got into an auto accident when I was in the process of moving I had gotten a job in Northeast Colorado, and I was moving to Northeast Colorado. And as I was in the process of doing that, I got in a wreck. So did some damage to the front right panel of my car, knocked out the light, the whole thing. So what I did was up in Sterling, Colorado, where I was going to live, I took it to a body shop. I got an estimate, right? And the accident was my fault. Like I tried to change lanes. Somebody was in my blind spot. I clipped the guy. Thankfully, everybody was okay. Nobody drove off the road or anything, but I dinged up my car pretty good. So I took it to a local body shop, and guy did an estimate on what it was going to cost me to fix the headlight and the right panel of the car. About a week later, there's a hailstorm. Gnarly hailstorm comes through Northeast Colorado. And my car gets some hail dings. And so I take it to, when there's big hailstorm, the insurance companies will set up like a tent. Yeah. You can drive through, you can get appraised. They tell you right on the spot, okay, this is how much damage is done. This is what the claim is worth. My dad did it once, and they were his insurance company, they were just writing checks. Like they just cut him a check in the parking lot for what it was worth. And he says, well, I don't really want to, get my hail dings fixed. They're not that bad, but I do want some new golf clubs. And he went and bought new golf clubs with the insurance money. So that was on my mind. I was driving through there like they're going to write me a check and I'm going to get some new golf clubs. Well, the guy comes back and tells me the car is totaled. Like there's enough damage on it to consider the car totaled. So I said, well, all right. And I go through the process of getting the car totaled. And I had gap coverage when I had bought the car because I was still paying it off. Gap coverage took care of the rest of the car. I had it towed away. I went and bought a new car. This car I still have to this day, my Charger. The body shop guy for like a year and a half kept calling me like, are we going to do some work? You put in a claim on your vehicle. Are we going to do some work on that? I said, well, yes, but I got the car totaled. The car was totaled after that. So we ended up not doing the work. But the guy kept calling me and calling me and calling me on it. And it was quite a thing. My random question today. I am told that witnessing the birth of your first child, which I am about to do imminently, is an out-of-body experience. I have heard that term before, and I have heard people tell me that it is like having an out-of-body experience. I don't know. This is my first time. I anticipate it will probably be something like that. So tell me, Spencer, about your most recent out-of-body experience.
That's a good question. Out-of-body experience?
Yes, like you were experiencing something, but it felt like it was not happening. It was happening to somebody else. It was not you. Like you were just sort of experiencing it outside of your body. Like you were watching it happen to yourself. Or what was happening was so surreal that it did not feel real.
That's a good question. I guess it was when I got laid off last year.
Yeah.
I had just come back. I was sick for a week.
Mm-hmm.
I had just come back, walked in the door, put my stuff down, and said, let's have a meeting. And I was like,
damn. That's
yeah.
tough.
And then I was like, geez.
That's tough. Yeah, no, I
was like, wait, did that really just happen?
Yeah, I've had that happen to me before, and that's a hard thing. That's a tough thing to deal with. For me, it was probably the day like COVID shut down sports, and just having that very distinct, like, how is this happening? I felt like I was observing it all happen to myself and to the rest of the world. That was very much an out-of-body experience, watching SportsCenter that night or looking at my phone and all of the sports scores, they all said postponed or canceled. That was certainly an out-of-body experience. Also, when I got into not the wreck I was talking about, I got into another wreck. I accidentally flipped a station vehicle when I was back in my North Platte days. Yeah, that's another story for another time. But yeah, while I was flipping and rolling in this SUV 6 times, the officer told me that was an out-of-body experience. Worst injury I had was a bruised arm, maybe a concussion. I was fine. But yeah, those were the out-of-body
I've got one that relates to COVID.
Okay.
So I was sitting in the main studios at WMUL, the campus station in Marshall, ironically wearing the hat today. This is right around that time.
Sure.
So we were supposed to go to California for National Broadcasting Society Awards. But because it was LA and before anything had even, like before it had officially become like a pandemic, it was LA.
Yeah, they're shutting stuff down out west.
Yeah. Well, no, just going to the airport, just
Mhm.
the amount of people that come into that airport from overseas.
Yeah.
So the university was like, no, not happening. So I was all down. And then while that was also happening, we were the Conference USA tournament for women's men's basketball was happening. But we aired all the women's basketball games because the SID would just call the games. So I was supposed to be gone. So I had already finished an assignment for the class. The teacher told me not to go. And then I ended up producing the broadcast. And it was a broadcast that never really happened.
Yeah.
And it was funny. I have a recording somewhere, like the SID was calling the game. And he's like, well, I guess we'll all remember this one forever.
Yeah, I bet.
And I was like, and I was sitting, the conference tournament was in Frisco, Texas, and I was in Huntington, West Virginia. And I was like, this is wild to feel this.
We're going to talk some Royals baseball, building a better bullpen, a little blind resume trade chatter when we return on 580 Sports Talk. The Major League Baseball trade deadline is 2 months away, but it's not too early to do a little speculation. I'm Dan. Spencer's here. Trenton's across the glass. Alpha Media is proud to partner with the Kansas Drive to Zero Coalition, encourages you to join Kansas fans with a plan here in the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. Always have a designated driver or other sober ride to and from your destination. The Royals need relief help. That is not a surprise. That is not a secret to anyone. Jeff Passan of ESPN wrote a column about all 30 major league teams, where they stand as it comes to what they are likely to do around the trade deadline. Likely sellers, likely buyers, teams that maybe don't know what it is that they're going to be doing yet. But I went through the list of teams that were listed as either almost certain to be sellers or likely sellers. And I picked out 4 different relief pitchers that the Royals might be able to go shopping for. So these are not relievers on like good teams. These are relievers on teams that are not very good and likely to be sellers. I did not include Oakland star reliever Mason Miller. I think that's going to be a little out of Kansas City's price range. And also Jeff Passan doesn't think that Miller's going to be moved in the first place. But what I'm going to ask both you, Spencer, and you, Trenton, based on blind resume alone, I'm not giving you the name, I'm not giving you the team, I'm just giving you the blind resume here. Would you trade for this reliever? If you would, what you like. If you wouldn't, what you don't. We have 4 pitchers to go through here, so we'll have to be a little quick, but we'll go through all 4 relievers here. And if you're watching on the YouTube or the video stream, you'll see their resume at the bottom of your screen. First, let's meet reliever A. 32-year-old right-hander with 1 year of team control left, 1 year before free agency after this one. He has 66 saves over the last 4 seasons for his team. His numbers this year are right around his career marks of 9 strikeouts per 9 innings, 3.6 walks per 9 innings, and 1.2 home runs per 9 innings. His current 1.57 earned run average is a career best, though his peripherals suggest it should be higher. He has a 97-mile-an-hour four-seam fastball he throws 2/3 of the time, also throws a splitter and a slider. Right-handers have hit him better than left-handers over the course of his career, though this season he has no discernible platoon split. Here we have the quote-unquote capital P proven, capital C closer, Trenton. Would you trade for this reliever, and why?
Yes, I would.
And what stands out about this reliever makes him appealing to you for the Royals?
He has some velocity to him.
Uh-huh.
And he has back end of the game experience, which the Royals don't have a lot of right now.
Don't. Really,
so,
it's just MacArthur and Will Smith, and you don't want Will Smith protecting a lead in the ninth.
So I think he'd benefit being a 7th, 8th, or 9th inning guy for the Royals.
Spencer, would you trade for this pitcher for the Royals, and why?
You might want to turn my mic on there.
Yeah, that would help.
I would say yes. I think you can never deter having back end of the bullpen help, especially if you want to make run this year, because you're at that point in the year where you're like, we weren't expecting this, but let's just go chips in for this year and years forward.
So the idea of somebody with closer experience is appealing to you.
Yes.
Right.
The only thing that is just 1 year of team control left.
Well, that's better than
at
the end of this year.
Yeah. You'd like one more. You like 2 years.
Sure. But being able to have him for next season is a nice bonus.
Yeah.
Let's meet reliever B. Reliever B is a 38-year-old right-hander on a 4.5 1-year deal, $4.5 million. So he's a free agent after this season. 14th big league campaign that includes 5 trips to the playoffs. Currently sitting with a 5.96 ERA. That's not great. But his fielding independent number is over 2 runs lower. So he's been unlucky. He's striking out 12.7 batters per 9 innings, his best mark since 2018. His 3.6 walks per 9 and 1.2 homers per 9 are right around his career norms. Usually a setup man, but did save 12 games last year when his team pressed him into 9th inning duty. He has 46 career saves. He throws a 92-mile-an-hour fastball and a sweeper about equally, about a third of the time each. Also has a changeup, cutter, four-seamer, and slider. Dominates righties. They hit him to just a 617 OPS, but lefties OPS 904 against him. 38-year-old right-handed specialist. Trenton, are you interested, and why?
I am, because of the high strikeout numbers and low walk numbers.
12.7 Ks per 9, 3.6 walks per 9. Both of those would be standout numbers in the Royals bullpen.
And he's not giving up the long ball.
My only concern with this pitcher is he a little too right-handed oriented? The Royals already have a bunch of guys who are right-handed platoon dominant, like Schreiber and MacArthur. What say you, Spencer? Would you trade for this pitcher, and why?
I think this is one where we're going to, if I'm the front office, the GM for the Royals, I'm taking a long look at him. He's maybe got the playoff experience, the postseason experience, the leadership. 30, he's been in the league long enough. And his 14-year campaign include 5 trips to the playoffs. So I think not for this team. I think if this same player at this age came up when they were definitely going to contend, I would say yes.
Okay.
But I'd say no because I don't know. Just he's on a 1-year deal. You're just renting him for the rest of the year.
This is a rental.
The pure rental status, I'm not a big fan of rentals unless you're going all in, and I don't think the Royals are at that step yet.
Yeah, but if you're going to rent anything, it would be a reliever.
Yes,
is how I would counter that. Reliever C, 29 years old. He will be a free agent at the end of this season. This left-hander has 40 saves and 39 of them in the last 3 seasons. So far this year, a 1.57 ERA and 7 saves. He has 12 strikeouts per 9 in his career, but that number is just at 9 strikeouts per 9 this year. Still would be elite for the Royals bullpen, but it's down a little bit this season. His walks are a problem. 7 walks per 9 innings after just 2.8 walks per 9 last year, which was an outlier given it for his career. He has walked over 5 batters per 9. He's giving up less than half a home run per 9 innings. Better numbers against righties than lefties, so a reverse platoon split. Throws a 96-mile-an-hour fastball 56% of the time and throws his slider the other 44% of the time. A true 2-pitch lefty with big velocity and big control issues. Trenton, are you interested in why?
I am not. Too many walks, and his ERA is low right now, but his fielding independent shows that he's probably been rather lucky and is going to regress to the mean a little bit, like we're seeing somewhat in the Royals bullpen right now. So I would not take this guy.
Yeah, get me out of here. I don't want that.
You don't want the walks. The
No.
walks are the red flag.
Yeah.
Totally understand that. All right, last one. Reliever D, 33 years old, has 1 year of team control after this one. This right-hander has only 1 season in his career where he has pitched more than 32 big league innings, but when he's been on the mound, he's been hard to hit. 13.3 strikeouts per 9 in his career, 12.6 this season. He's also been a little prone to wildness. 5 walks per 9 this year, close to 6 walks per 9 over his career. And in 2021, he led the league with 24 hit batsmen. His half a home run per 9 matches his career mark. Peripherals support his current 2.70 earned run average. A right-hander throwing a sweeping slider 82% of the time. He's a one-pitch guy. He has a 94-mile-an-hour fastball he throws the rest of the time. No meaningful platoon splits. Trenton, are you interested in why?
I would take a flyer on this guy. High strikeout pops out. I mean, what's the worst thing? You're going to have another Chris Stratton with all the walks and stuff like that.
And at least he's missing more bats than Stratton is.
He's missing exponentially amount more bats. He's not giving up a lot of home runs. He can pitch both sides, no large platoon split. Like you said, I think this is a guy you take a flyer on.
What about you, Spencer?
I agree with everything he said.
All right, so rank them in order of your interest, and do this quick because we want to do a reveal here. If these 4 relievers were on the board for the Royals, who are you most interested in to least interested in?
Reliever A would be number 1.
Yep.
Okay.
Reliever D, number 2.
Okay.
Reliever B, number 3. And then reliever C last.
So I'm going A, B, D, C.
A, B, D, C. Okay. Time for the reveal. Reliever A, Spencer, you should know who this is. This is Washington Nationals closer Kyle Finnegan.
Kyle Finnegan. Okay.
Now
I
that you
can see that.
Now that you know who he is, do you think the Royals ought to be interested?
He's got some upside. I'll tell you that. He is 32 years old.
Do you trust him when he comes in the game, close it for the Nationals? Do you trust he's going to get those final 3 outs?
Yes, I do.
All right. That's good enough for me.
He also has a very cool light show.
Oh, well,
but
maybe.
I don't know. The Royals might not have those kind of lights.
Oh, they do.
Oh,
They've
they
used
do?
them for MacArthur. Reliever B is one of my favorite players of all time. Reliever B is New York Mets veteran Adam Ottavino, the 38-year-old with the postseason experience. Reliever C is the pitcher that Jeff Passan refers to as the best reliever on the market, despite those high walks. That is Miami Marlins lefty Tanner Scott. And the Marlins, we know, are motivated sellers. Reliever D, I had to DQ because you actually got this one right in the bullpen earlier, Spencer. This is Austin Adams of the Oakland Athletics, another team that will be.
Wait, you said
sellers.
receiver what? Or
reliever D.
Reliever
Austin
D?
Adams. Yeah, D. That's Austin Adams.
That's not even which one I thought it would have been, but yes.
Yeah, that's Austin Adams of the A's. Fun little game. Appreciate you guys playing. You'll get home versions in the mail for participating. We're going to take a break. We've got one more hour of 580 Sports Talk before Royals baseball coming to you live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. We've got headlines, What is Wrong with You, and Michael Swain coming in the 4 o'clock hour of the show. Let's get it. Hour number 3 and the final hour today of 580 Sports Talk. Clearing the way for the Royals Baseball Network. 5 o'clock pregame, 5:40 first pitch from Progressive Field tonight as the Royals open their 3-game series against the Cleveland Guardians. First meeting of the year between the two teams running first and second in the American League Central Division. The Guardians with a 4-game lead. Going into tonight's game, Seth Lugo and Tristan McKenzie, your scheduled starting pitchers. Coming to you live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio, I am Dan Lucero. Spencer Dupuis is with me. Trenton Craxner is across the way, behind the glass, pushing buttons, turning knobs, sliding sliders, making sure we get on the air for you today. All of us here in the Kansas Drive to Zero studio invite you to join Fans with a Plan. If you're going to be drinking, always have a designated driver. Use your rideshare app or plan ahead for a sober ride home. Check out more information at kansasdrivetozero.com. Coming up in the third and final hour of the show today, we've got our 580 Sports Talk headlines. Plenty to get to in our headlines. We'll also have another round of What Is Wrong With You, and it'll be time for Jayhawk Weekly. At the bottom of the hour, we'll be joined by Michael Swain of Fog.net, who was in attendance for a KU basketball scrimmage today. We'll get his thoughts on how the Jayhawks have looked and ask him some other questions about Jayhawk basketball and football as well. Michael Swain will join us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline at the bottom of this hour. We invite you to interact with the program today. You can hit us up on the Top City Metal Supply text line, 785-272-9429. You can also interact if you are in the YouTube comments. If you're watching us on YouTube, 580 Sports Talk is the YouTube channel. Subscribe. Tell your friends to subscribe. Tell people who aren't your friends. Tell the random person you bump into on the street. Tell your server the next time you go out to eat. Subscribe to 580 Sports Talk on YouTube and watch the show that way and interact in the live chat section with our other listeners. You can also send us comments if you're viewing on Facebook, on our Facebook page, WIBW News, and on Twitter, 580 Sports Talk as well. Since it's a busy final hour, Spencer, what do you say we get right to it and we start with our 580 Sports Talk headlines? We begin with the question that was asked of us yesterday, and we didn't have an answer for you, but we have an answer for you today. When are the Kansas State Wildcats playing baseball again? Batcats, of course, into a super regional for the first time in 11 years. They will be playing against the Virginia Cavaliers in Charlottesville. We know the game dates, the game times, and what TV station you can watch these games on. You will be able to see the Cats playing Friday night. They will open Friday night, a 6 p.m. Central Time first pitch for Game 1 of their best of 3 Super Regional against Florida. Game 2 will be on, do I have that right? They start on Friday or they start? Yes, they're starting Friday. Saturday, June 8th, an afternoon game, a 2 p.m. first pitch on Saturday. That is, again, 2 p.m. Central Time, 3 p.m. local time out in Charlottesville. If a Game 3 is necessary, if each team splits the first 2 games and deciding Game 3 is necessary, that will be played on Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m. All of those games will air on ESPNU. So if you have ESPNU as part of your cable package, you will be able to watch the Wildcats and the Who's. Unfortunately, because of conflict with Royals baseball, we will not be able to broadcast any of the radio coverage of this super regional, but KStateSports.com, the Varsity Network app, will have you covered if you are wanting to listen along. Friday night at 6, Saturday afternoon at 2, Sunday afternoon at 2 if necessary. K-State, Virginia, ESPNU, Super Regional Baseball. Winner to Omaha. That's our first headline. Spencer, you're next.
We've been updating her journey through the College World Series. Unfortunately, Najee Kennedy's and Stanford's this season has ended as they were eliminated from the Women's College World Series yesterday with a 1-0 loss. The lone run was unearned on Kennedy, who pitched a complete game in the top of the 7th. Texas will play
Oklahoma.
We
know that as of instance ago.
Yes.
They have walked off Virginia.
Trenton let us know about that.
Yes.
Her pitching line for the NCAA tournament, they leaned on her heavy in this tournament, and We'll hear a little snippet from Coach Jessica Allister's post-game press conference last night to talk about what Kennedy's meant to the team this year. Her line for the NCAA tournament was 62 innings pitched, 41 hits allowed, 15 runs allowed, 12 of those were earned, in 81 strikeouts, 81 Ks in 62 innings.
She was dominant, and her defense let her down in a scoreless game in the 7th. Leadoff runner reached on an error on a routine ground ball to second baseman, and the only run of the game scored when Stanford botched a rundown between third and home. Very disappointing way for Stanford in their series, but hey, it's hard to win when you don't score. And they could not solve the freshman for Texas, who shut him out twice in the series. So kudos to her. Kudos to Nyjah again. Incredible season. Trent, I believe you have Spencer's computer up. Spencer, if you want to play that audio from
What was that?
Okay, maybe we don't ask you to do it. Maybe I will do it. How about you put the other computer up? And it's in wire ready, correct?
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna play it from my computer. You might not. You might have a setting that's a little awry there.
That was really weird.
That was terrifying, was what that was. So Jessica Allister is the Stanford head coach, and we're going to hear from her momentarily. If my computer hasn't frozen entirely, it may have. That would be funny. No, here we go. This is Jessica Allister, her thoughts on Nyjah Kennedy's performance at the Women's College World Series.
I mean, I don't even know if you can describe it, right? Like, her competitiveness is the piece that just continues to like awe me every single day, because her skill set is unique, but really just the way she competes sets her apart. And I've never seen a situation that she backs down from, coming back out and getting the ball. And, we had her on a short leash today, and we're monitoring her closely and ready to make a change. And she was like, absolutely not. And I think that competitor in her is unlike anything that I've ever seen. And then she sits here and, the team doesn't get the result that we want, and she looks inward and, talks about what she can do better. And that's just, it's not common. It's what makes her a wonderful teammate. It's what makes her so successful. And it's why her teammates love her. And you heard it in all the press conferences or in all the sound bites from all of them. They're saying we're playing for Nyjah Reed. I mean, they love her because she does all of those things. So I just, she's phenomenal.
Not only is she a great pitcher, an even better teammate.
No surprise to anybody who knows her and followed her athletic career at Topeka High. Certainly outstanding season, disappointing end. Defense let her down, offense let her down, but she was terrific. She's National Player of the Year. She's got 2 more years of eligibility left at Stanford. Can't wait to see where it goes from here. Again, it will be Texas and Oklahoma playing for the national championship starting tomorrow. Oklahoma, a walk-off winner over Florida. Jada Coleman, leadoff home run to start the 8th to walk it off for the Sooners, the defending champs. Next headline for me, following up a story that was percolating yesterday. It was made official, and you've maybe heard it if you've been listening to the CBS News breaks at the top of the hour here on 580 WIBW. For the first time since Pete Rose in 1989, a Major League Baseball player has been banned for life for betting on his team's games. Tucupita Marcano, 24-year-old utility player for the San Diego Padres, placed 25 bets last season on the Pittsburgh Pirates as a member of that team, even though he was injured and unavailable to play at the time. Rule 21 is crystal clear. If you place bets on a game in which your team is involved, you will be banned for life. And Rule 21 is in every last clubhouse in Major League Baseball. It is posted by the door. You cannot miss it. And Tucupita Marcano somehow missed it. The league, in their investigation, reported that Marcano bet more than $150,000 on baseball in October of 2022 and from July through November of 2023. Of the 387 bets Marcano made on the sport of baseball, 231 were MLB related. $87,319 was bet directly on MLB related action. The other wagers were on international baseball. Reportedly, Marcano only won 4.3% of his bets. So
it's like me.
Yeah, it's like throwing parlays out there left and right. He's got these 9-leg home run parlays. A quick aside for folks who may enjoy sports gambling and may not be banned from doing it by their job like Tuku Pete DeMarcano is. Little secret here. The gambling companies really want you to play parlays. And the reason they really want you to play parlays, the reason they give them away for free, they got the no sweat parlays. I can say this now. FanDuel's not paying me anymore. They used to. Full disclosure. The parlays, man, those are losers. Over a broad spectrum of time, those are losers. And I'm not sitting here higher than, being high and mighty telling you I never played a parlay before. Sure I have. They're fun to play here and there. Every week of the NFL season, I put a $1 bet on a 10-leg anytime touchdown scorer parlay to try and win $10,000 or thereabouts. Sometimes I choose even worse odds to get a higher payout. I know that ain't going to hit. It's like buying a lottery ticket. It's not going to hit, but man, what if it did? And it makes the Sunday a little bit more fun for me. So I'm not here saying I've never played a parlay and you should never do that, but just know that there's a reason that they push you towards betting the parlays. Take it easy on the parlays. They are not winning propositions over the long run.
Yeah.
Tuku Pete DeMarcano found that out the hard way, I'm guessing, because that's the only way you could only win 4% of your bets. Like, I am no genius, but my hit rate on like a game prop or an over-under or a spread, like my hit rate is pretty close to 50%, probably on the wrong side of 50%. Again, that's why this stuff is out there. If average Joe could beat the house more than 50% of the time, they make it harder for you to do that. Like, there's a reason the house always wins. Anyway, Tuku Pete DeMarcano banned for life. 3 or 4 other players have been suspended for a year because they also bet on baseball, but they bet on games that they were not tied to. This list of players includes one active big leaguer, Michael Kelly, who had led the Oakland A's in relief innings pitched this season. He's banned for a year. So is Andrew Saalfrank of the Arizona Diamondbacks, who pitched in the World Series for Arizona last year and had appeared in big league games this year. Also, Jose Rodriguez, an infielder in the Phillies system who made his major league debut last year, and Jay Groom of the San Diego Padres, who was at AAA in the San Diego system. Those 4 players banned for 1 year. Again, I'll make the same point I made yesterday. People are going to point to this and say, well, this is why it's bad for the leagues to be involved with gambling. Flip side, this is why regulated gambling is a success, because you root out the people who are being idiots and who are breaking the rules a lot easier than you could when the only way you could make a bet was to know a guy who knew it.
Yeah.
So again, and it's not that I don't think it's a fair argument to make and a fair discussion to be had about the relationships leagues have with FanDuel and DraftKings and other partners like that. Like, I definitely think that's a discussion, but I don't think that this is evidence that is the evidence that others think it is, that makes it a bad thing. I think that's evidence that regulated gambling is working as intended. Next headline, Spencer.
My next headline comes from the NFL. Adam Schefter is reported this morning. Now I believe it's now official. Reigning offensive player of the year, 49ers running back Christian McCaffrey once again has reset the running back market, signing a 2-year extension with the 49ers, averaging $19 million per year. McCaffrey will receive an additional $8 million over what he was scheduled to make in the first 2 years, while adding $24 million in guarantees. So he is once again resetting the running back market. About one of the only running backs still getting paid.
Might be the only one.
Yeah.
After him, and it's Saquon and Derrick Henry's on a healthy contract. But again, we talked with Matt Verderam yesterday about wide receivers and their market right now, and how wide receivers might become like running backs, where the elite of the elite get paid at the position. Like, you're not going to not pay Christian McCaffrey. You're not going to, well, I guess the Giants didn't pay Saquon Barkley, but they're the Giants, right? Like, they're a losing they've been a losing franchise for about the last decade, and there's a reason for that. But those are the running backs who get paid. And the second tier, anything outside of elite, is just not going to get a second contract or not going to get a substantial contract. And that's reality for running backs, and it might in the end become reality for wide receivers too. But if you're the best of the best at your position, you are always going to get good money. Exactly. And there is no better running back. Like, if we did a running back dispersal draft, would Christian McCaffrey be your first pick? Would you take him before anybody else? I would too.
100%.
Next headline for me. This is an interesting one from the state of Florida, reported by Matt Hayes, national college football writer. The Florida High School Athletic Association has approved name, image, and likeness for high school players. High school athletes in the state of Florida are now eligible to make name, image, and likeness deals that will pay them money. Matt Hayes tweets, there will be high school players who earn more money than their coaches do. That's a wild thought.
Yeah.
I can't say I'm super comfortable with that. At the same time, we are in an era now where high school athletes are celebrities in their own way. There are high school athletes who come into college and they've already got hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram or on TikTok or on YouTube or whatever it is. They've already become
Their own
popular.
brand.
Yes, they're their own brand. That's exactly right. And it doesn't always work for those kids, right? Like, who's a good example of a high school? Remember Julian Newman? Yeah, is that a name? It's not a football player, basketball player. Julian Newman was like a YouTube sensation. And some of this was his dad, like pushing all these buttons and making him do all this stuff. But Julian Newman was this big deal. I think he played like varsity basketball as a 6th grader. He was on his like a small little private school varsity basketball team. He was scoring all these points. There were articles about him. Big YouTube following, fancy dribbler. Like Julian Newman is the guy who will walk up the court and do like some and one mixtape dribbling in a game. Problem with Julian Newman, he never got tall. So he was not in the end a legitimate Division I basketball prospect. But while he was in high school, that was maybe the peak in his life of his earning ability as a basketball player was in high school. And there are high school athletes who will never be more valuable as athletes than they are in high school. Peaking in high school is a very real thing.
It was like that guy in 2018, an 8th grader standing at 6'7", 370 was offered by Bama. I don't know what he ended up doing.
Yeah, like there are, what was that? David Sills. Remember David Sills? He had a wide receiver at West Virginia, right? Yeah. David Sills had a scholarship offer to play quarterback when he was like in 1st grade or 5th grade, something like it was something ridiculous. He had a standing scholarship offer from USC, I think it was, to play quarterback. He ended up playing quarterback even. So sometimes you are at the peak of your earning potential as an athlete in high school. And if that is the case, then you ought to be able to cash in. There shouldn't be a rule that says you can't make money. There shouldn't. Now, again, I say this while also agreeing that I'm not super comfortable with the idea that there might be a hotshot high school kid who's making double the money that his coach is, because his coach also teaches math on the side. Like that, to me, I don't love that. I don't love everything about this. But fundamentally, I agree with the idea that if you are of value to someone, if you have a skill set that is valuable to someone, you ought to be able to accept money for that.
Yeah.
You ought to. So is there a balance? Is there a fine line? Probably. There will be very few athletes who this actually applies to, like the 3rd string point guard or quarterback on a high school team that stinks is not going to get any NIL money. This is only for the kids who do have that Instagram and TikTok following, which is like 1% of kids that this is actually going to apply to. So I don't think this is a, Western civilization is lost sort of crisis, but I do think there's an element of it that I'm a little uncomfortable with as well. That's going to be our final 580 Sports Talk headline for today. We're going to take a break. We come back. It's What Is Wrong With You? And an addendum to a previous What Is Wrong With You story that makes me maybe rethink having it be a monthly champion. We'll talk about it next on 580 WIBW. Before we get to our new What Is Wrong With You stories today and see if we can take down our first weekly champion for June, the gentleman who stole a liquor truck and planned to sell the liquor on the truck to pay off his drug debts and then told all of that to the police. We have to update you on our May champion. That was the suspended license driver, 44-year-old Corey Harris of Pittsfield Township, Michigan. The clip of his hearing, his Zoom hearing, spread like wildfire as he was in the act of driving, which, again, he had a suspended license, and that's what the hearing was for. The judge, in disbelief, revoked his bond at the hearing. We named it our May champion. It's still a really funny clip.
Yeah.
But there is some important context here. What Judge Simpson and no one in the courtroom apparently knew at the time was that another judge had rescinded Harris's suspended license in January of 2022. And
Crazy.
the court didn't know. Harris's license had been suspended during a now settled child support case with the Saginaw County friend of the court before it was ordered reinstated. The reason the judge and no one else knew about the reinstatement is because the Michigan Secretary of State office never received a clearance from the Saginaw County friend of the court. So the lift on Harris's license never officially went into effect, or the lift on his suspended license. So he never should have had a suspended license in the first place. That being said, he still should have been aware that his license was suspended and not been driving. But at the same time, the justice system kind of did this guy a little bit dirty.
Well, yeah, he should be suing because he spent 2 days in jail after the hearing, abiding by the judge's orders, and he turned himself in.
Harris told WXYZ TV in Michigan the license suspension was supposed to have been lifted 2 years ago, but they didn't. It's very embarrassing, Harris said about the whole situation. So part of me is starting to feel a little bit bad for the guy. And when we all reconvene at some point, because Brendan is part of the committee on What Is Wrong With You as well,
Yeah,
we will decide whether or not to retroactively change our May champion away from a guy who still did kind of a dumb thing, but should have never been in a position to have done the dumb thing in the first place.
it's okay because we can turn it into the What Is Wrong With You with the Saginaw County friend of the court. Whatever that is, whoever they are, that's the What Is Wrong With You to this. Why is this guy have a suspended license when he shouldn't have had it for 2+ years?
Yeah, it's a fair question, and it's a fair question from the Top Signal Supply text line. Wouldn't he know that his license was still suspended? Yeah, I would think he would be pretty aware, especially because he was appearing based on a traffic stop in which his license was flagged as suspended. Like, yeah, he should have known.
That's true.
But also, he caught a raw deal in the first place.
Yeah.
So, anyway, we continue on with today's What Is Wrong With You. Spencer, go first.
Yes, we'll go back to the state of Florida. A Florida man was arrested on multiple charges Monday after leading officers on a chase that began at a popular Columbia shopping center. This is actually in South Carolina. So it's a Florida man in South Carolina.
You can take the man out of Florida,
Yeah.
but you cannot take the Florida out of the man. Go ahead.
According to the Forest Acres Police Department, Bernard Nobles, a 30-year-old Lauderdale Lakes, Florida resident, was charged with shoplifting and is being held on 2 fugitive from justice warrants, police said in the news release. Nobles was also charged with burglary, jail records show. At about 2 p.m. on Monday, police were called about a man later identified as Nobles and a woman who were reportedly shoplifting inside a business at a shopping center. Police did not identify the store where the incident began. Officers saw a man and a woman matching the description leave the store, according to the release. When officers approached, Nobles and the woman ran away. After a foot chase, both were detained. According to the release, information about how long the chase lasted or where Nobles and the woman were taken into custody was not available. Nobles had 74 bottles of travel-sized perfume concealed in his clothing.
What?
The stolen items were valued at $2,923.48, according to the release.
Okay, we're gonna stop right there. That's so much perfume.
Yes.
Why?
How are you carrying that on your person?
Did he think he was going to resell it? Like, who needs that much smell good in the first place? Like
I
a
don't
little of that goes a really
Yeah.
long way. Was he going to set up like a secondary market for perfume, travel size perfume?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like he's a lifelong criminal, allegedly. The police said they learned that arrest records from Myrtle Beach, as well as Broward County and Indian River in Florida, had been issued for Nobles. There was no word about the charges Nobles is facing from those other municipalities. The woman, though, was interviewed and released, so she was not charged with anything.
All right. 74. There's so many.
Yeah.
That's just a preposterous amount
Yep.
of perfume. Very funny. Like, of all the things you can exclusively steal from a place, travel size perfume
Exactly.
is a very funny thing. My story takes us to Pennsylvania, Luzerne County, where somebody managed to smuggle a handgun into the county prison. 22-year-old Renan Teneo smuggled the weapon into the prison. Luzerne County officials and Wilkes-Barre police are conducting internal investigation into the gun smuggling incident. The chief of police in Wilkes-Barre, I think might be Wilkes-Barre, I think.
I think it's Wilkes-Barre.
Is it Wilkes-Barre? Okay. Wilkes-Barre Police Chief Joe Coffey admits 2 of his officers, for whatever reason, did not find the handgun. Teneo was arrested early Wednesday morning in connection with the domestic incident. He was transported to the county prison and handed over to corrections officers. The warden says that when Teneo was put through a metal detector, the alarm sounded. Teneo said his metal nose ring set it off, but the correction officers did not believe him. They searched him. They found the gun in his shoe, a .38 caliber snub nose revolver. Why wasn't the weapon found by Wilkes-Barre police before he was taken to jail? Chief Coffey says they're trying to find out. He just about got a gun into prison.
Yeah.
And then he said, actually, no, that's my nose ring. Yeah, sure it is, pal. Being corrected by the 785. Thank you very much for the text line. Wilkes-Barre. No, Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. However you pronounce it, their police really dropped the ball on this one. They about let a dude walk into jail with a gun.
Crazy.
So those are our 2 stories today. The perfume thief and our guy with a gun.
Both of these are idiotic stories.
Yes, correct.
I don't know.
My lean is perfume thief, but I don't think either one of these beating the guy who stole booze to sell to repair his drug debt.
Yeah, I think what are you doing with all those travel size perfumes?
74 travel size perfumes.
Yeah,
You could have smelled that dude 2 towns over.
Yeah, but yeah, it doesn't beat our winner from yesterday.
Van says the perfume thief smells fishy to me. The perfume thief is today's winner, but we're staying with the liquor thief and guy who was in drug debt. He's going to stay as our weekly champion for What Is Wrong With You. We're going to take a break here on 580 Sports Talk. Michael Swain of Fog.net joins us next for Jayhawk Weekly. All of us here in the Kansas Drive to Zero studio invite you to join Fans with a Plan. If you're going to be drinking, always have a designated driver. Use your rideshare app or plan ahead for a sober ride home. Every Tuesday at this time, we welcome in Michael Swain, Fog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network for Jayhawk Weekly. And Michael, you had a chance to take in a KU basketball scrimmage today. I have to ask, what immediately stood out to you from what you got to see from Bill Self's punch?
Scrimmages are not the best barometer for future success. I think Charlie Moore famously made like 6 or 8 threes in one of these. And honestly, that might have been the same number of threes he made all season. But look, I think just athletically, like, this is a team that you just see the pop. Like, it's a lot different than last year when it was Nick Timberlake running around and, Parker Brown and guys like that. Where right now you're looking at it, and I think out of the 5 newcomers, I think 4 of them really stood out today with their athletic ability. It's AJ Storr, Rylan Griffin, Floyd Badunga, or Keith Passmore. Those are guys that really stood out with just the ways they move across the basketball court. And I think even Zeke Mayo had some flashes of showing he can do it too. So I think, look, that was always going to be a really big point of emphasis for KU this offseason, especially considering how last year's team played. And it's one thing to feel like you have it on paper, but I think to see it in person is a little bit different. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that has stuck with me here as I'm driving home.
So obviously, like you said, like, it's one scrimmage. It's hard to draw like firm conclusions on anything, but were there any like combinations of players, combinations of backcourts or front courts that you saw playing together that maybe caught your eye a little bit? A couple of maybe some guys that look like they might be developing some chemistry or might be useful paired with each other?
Not really, honestly. It's so much of a pickup game, and it's not very structured. And I was kind of thinking about this as we talked to Flory afterwards, and the guys have only been on campus for 3 days, 4 days, and so this isn't like halfway through summer when chemistry can maybe start to be built. It really is just so early, and so I thought it was interesting. Right, one of the teams had Storr, Rylan Griffin, Zeke Mayo, Juwan Harris, and Hunter Dickinson on it, and I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. That obviously these teams are picked. That's a group that they want playing together early on. I thought that was just something that probably was more interesting than maybe a specific combination showing flashes of having good chemistry early on.
Bill Self was in Topeka earlier and made some comments about still looking to add one more player to the mix. They've got a scholarship. They'd like to use it. What kind of player do you think at this point that Kansas would be targeting? And do you think it's realistic to expect that they could find a legitimate contributor at this stage of the transfer portal?
So experience is something that KU is really leaning on this offseason. I think that will continue. You saw that with their pursuit of Jackson Robinson, right? A guy that's really experienced. I don't think you're going to see KU add any more freshmen. Like, I know they got linked to a kid that was, I think, committed to Arizona. Like, that's not real. I think KU very much is just going to look for someone that is experienced. And I think the most interesting part about what Bill Self said about what they're looking for is the winning part, where I thought it was interesting. Self said that, there are different players that go to the portal, right? The guys that want the NIL bag, the guys that didn't play a ton and want to go find somewhere they can play a lot. There are guys going to the portal that know where they already want to go. And then there are the guys that are playing at smaller schools that are looking to go and win somewhere. Because they just haven't done it in their college basketball career. I think we saw that last year. Nick Timberlake talked about it plenty, right? The chance to go and compete in the NCAA tournament. Like, that was a huge part of what he was looking for in his criteria of that school he wanted. And so I think someone that fits that mold, that maybe played a smaller school, contributed there, and really just wants to go and try and find somewhere where they can go and win. I think that's probably the type of player and the type of, I don't know if sales pitch is the right word, but the type of recruiting that they'll do and what they'll try and lean on there.
In terms of the tangible skill set that could benefit Kansas, maybe something that they're short on, or they may be looking for a stretch big. I mean, like, obviously I say this like you can just go shopping and pick one out. Are they in need of another wing or guard scorer, pure spot up shooter? Like, if you could go shopping, if Bill Self could, and just pick out a prototype player type of player for his roster to fill it out. What do you think that would be?
Yeah, I think probably a combo guard who can shoot, handle the basketball, someone like that, right? That has that ability to play multiple spots. I think just getting another guy that can handle the ball with confidence, right? I think Zeke Mayo is someone that obviously did that a lot at South Dakota State, and he's going to do that next year with KU. But you're looking at the roster, and it's like DeJuan Harris is a primary ball handler, right? Zeke Mayo can't do it. And then you're kind of looking and saying, okay, maybe is Marco Jackson the third guy on that list? And then you're wondering, okay, is that where you want Marco to be? And so I think someone that can offer those types of traits, right? They can shoot, and they could dribble. Like, I think those are really the two things. And look, KU's got plenty of versatility right now on the wings, right? You think about having AJ Storr, KJ Adams, Rylan Griffin. Like, those are really good wings. And then you just look at the backcourt at kind of the more 1-2 spots, and it's just maybe not as clear. And I think that's probably what KU's going to try and hit on.
We're joined by Michael Swain of Falk.net and 24/7 Sports on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline for Jayhawk Weekly. And you had a piece up on the site yesterday. I believe it's a free piece. It's about the fact that Kansas football is going to get access to their facility, the Anderson Family Football Complex, during the season. You talked with Lance Leipold about that. How big is that going to be for them during the season?
Man, I think it's really huge. There's going to be so much displacement with KU this year, right? Playing in different places, and there's already been so much displacement with them having to go through spring football and not having the facility again, and having to work out, eat, and practice in the same spot for half of spring, right? The indoor complex was basically the multi-purpose facility that they used, and for them to be able to get into the facility, and I think it's also a huge credit to the construction crews work in that this is something that is very realistic and is on track to happen, where KU's coaches will be back in their regular offices, and new and improved offices at that, and the team will be able to be back in their new locker room, and they'll be back in the weight room, and all the extra things that are being added to the facility. It's such a huge thing for this team to have, and to have that kind of home base to operate out of, where it doesn't feel super ragtag and makeshift. That's a word Lance Leipold has used. So it's something that maybe you read and you're like, yeah, whatever. Like, who cares? It's not a big of a deal. Like, it is a big deal, right? Guys not having to walk across construction sites to go to their lockers. Like, it's stuff like that that I think can help a team, I think, feel more confident and be able to just continue to build week on week, because I think that's one of the big things Lance Leipold talks about in our times we talked to him this calendar year. It's going to take everyone every single day working as hard as they can on the task at hand to get where they want to go. And so having that home base, I think, is a really huge building block for them to be able to build that stuff on.
And without taking too much from your article, where people can go subscribe, Falk.net and 24/7 Sports, you caught up with Lincoln Cure, one of the state's top prospects in high school. He was in Lawrence over the weekend. What were your takeaways from the conversation you had with him?
Yeah, KU's doing everything they can to land him. KU's been very consistent in their pursuit with a lot of these in-state guys, where they really do go out of their way. They've had guys meet with a transfer. Lincoln Cure got to meet with Travis Goff during his official visit, and that's not something that KU does with every single official visitor. Like, that's a very rare thing that happens. And so I think, my biggest takeaway probably from talking to Lincoln last night is that just KU really pulled out all the stops, and KU's kind of set their bar for the visit. And now it's going to be about, Lincoln going other places and seeing if he can find the, that kind of feeling of home, right? And then where you want to spend your next kind of 3, 4, 5 years. So he's going to take more visits. I think he's going to A&M this weekend, then he goes to Oregon and then K-State. So this recruitment still got a long way to go. KU's obviously going to try and beat it to the finish line.
Do you think that KU's chances to land Lincoln Cure have meaningfully increased in the last couple of weeks? Because before, it was a lot of talk that it was going to be a final 3 for Cure, that it was going to be down to K-State, Oregon, and Texas A&M. And then Cure includes KU on his like recruiting graphic down to his final 4, and he makes a visit there, and it's his first visit. What do you think that KU has done to really get in the ring for this recruiting pitch and increase their chances, if they have, of landing this big time prospect?
Yeah, so a lot of it, I think, revolves around Jeff Grimes and the job he's done recruiting Lincoln, since he arrived. And I think, Kyr's family really likes the Kansas coaching staff, and so I think there's always been a certain level of interest. And then you add in, obviously, his brother Leighton is now on campus, part of the team, and then so there are all these kind of maybe checks along the road that have allowed KU to stay in this and end up getting the official visit. Look, I don't think it's a top 3; it's a top 2. There's a very good chance Deshaun Brain from Derby is going to go to Oregon, and Deshaun and Lincoln are not playing at the same college. I'll tell you that, full stop. So I think it's really going to be a Texas A&M K-State battle, and then I think probably Oregon and KU are probably in that next tier of schools in this recruitment.
Michael Swain of Fog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network, joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. This is Jayhawk Weekly. We do it every Tuesday at this time here on 580 Sports Talk. Check out Michael's outstanding work at Fog.net. Subscribe to 24/7 Sports today, and find him on Twitter at mswain247. I mentioned that Bill Self was in Topeka earlier and spoke, and Lance Leipold was as well. You got a chance to hear from the KU head football coach regarding players who are on the team, on campus. What were the interesting takeaways you had from what Lance Leipold had to say?
Yeah, so obviously they started workouts that Monday, so we'd already been in to see some of the guys, and that's obviously positive. Jalen Daniels, going through it all. As everything starts to ramp up, I think that's a huge deal. The fact that, he's going to start summer workouts from a place where he can really build on it, where I think it was a much different scenario for winter workouts. That's huge. Obviously, talked about, KU's newcomers. That's the story I've got up on the website right now. Amir Herring, an offensive lineman from Michigan. Really interesting story. I didn't know this. Obviously, I knew that, Amir is cousins with Isaiah Marshall, the Kansas freshman quarterback. I didn't know that Marshall's mother Herring's mother was on some of the visits that Marshall's parents and Marshall took. So she had already been to campus before the family took their official visit, maybe a month or two ago. So I thought that was a really interesting story. But then, for guys like, Amir Herring, right, they're going to play catch up during fall camp. Missing spring football is so big. And then KU adding by Joe, someone that, Leipold spoke highly of his long-term potential. But another guy that, a lot is going to ride on preseason camp. How is he able to jump in, acclimate, get used to everything, and play fast? So I thought those are probably some of the more interesting things to come from Leipold. And, it's crazy to think, we're probably a month away from Big 12 Media Days. So we're getting close.
Is Job the guy who you think is most likely to have an Austin Booker-like breakout as a pass rush presence for this year's KU team?
Yeah, maybe. It's crazy. What Austin Booker did is incredibly impressive, right? You're talking about a guy that was, Big 12 defensive newcomer of the year, first team all Big 12, and a Big 12 that has some really good defensive line. Not going to set that as the standard for By Job. Maybe in year 3, maybe that can be the standard. But I think for year 1, I think you are right, though. If there is a guy that's going to have a big rise during fall camp, where at the beginning of camp, it's like, man, if this guy can do it, that'd be great. To where at the end, it's like, man, this guy is going to do it. I think By is probably the guy I would put my money on. Look, Deshaun Warner and Dak Brinkley are two guys that are always, blue chip recruits too. But freshmen playing along the line of scrimmage, I think Deshaun is going to arrive, in the 220s, maybe low 230. We'll have to see what he's listed at, but I still think strength-wise, he'll have a little bit of ways to go to get ready, but maybe he can help KU out on some pass rush downs. But I think in terms of physicality, frame, and being in a college program for a year and even getting a game, in terms of experience, I think Job is definitely probably in the pole position to have a sort of fall camp rise.
Michael Swain covers Kansas athletics for Fog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. You can find him on Twitter at mswain247. You can hear him Tuesdays on Jayhawk Weekly here on 580 Sports Talk. Michael, always a pleasure. We'll do it again next week.
Awesome. Sounds great, guys. Talk to you then.
That is Michael Swain. We'll take a break, come back, wrap things up with the final word here on 580 Sports Talk. Alpha Media, proud to partner with the Kansas Drive to Zero Coalition, encourages you to join Kansas fans with a plan. Always have a designated driver or other sober ride to and from your destination. It's time to wrap up a shortened edition of 580 Sports Talk with a final word. Spencer.
It's a big night. It's a big start to a series for the Royals. It's the biggest series they've had, and you said earlier today, 7 years. This is the time where you learn, are they really contenders this year? Are they really contending for the AL Central? And I think this could be a good series for the Royals, and it could keep the momentum up. They've already put 35, or they at 36 or 35?
36.
They've already put 36 wins in the bank. They could get close to 40 if they have a good week here.
I'm looking forward to tonight's game. I really think Seth Lugo is going to come out and shove and set a tone. And hopefully, unlike the last important Royals regular season series, which was also in Cleveland, maybe the Royals will score a run, which, again, they failed to do in late August of 2017, the last time there was a regular season series that meant this much in the division for the Royals. Final word for me, Ugonna Onyenso is a massive pickup for K-State, not just in the sense that he's 7 feet tall. The roster for Jerome Tang's group is starting to come together. A lot of the big national pundits are raving about this addition, raving about what Jerome Tang is putting together for his roster. It's all coming together. A dynamic point guard, shooting at the guard and wing spots, big men who are versatile, who can rim run, who are athletic. I'm really liking the way that the Wildcats are taking shape on the hardwood. Royals baseball coming up next. We are on from 2 to 5 tomorrow. Again, short for Royals baseball. Maybe I'll be here. Maybe I won't. Maybe my wife will be having a baby. But until then, from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio, for Trent and for Spencer, I'm Dan. This is 580 Sports Talk.